It is a Thursday with the Bennington Show. I'm Ron Bennington. There's Gail Bennington.
Yo.
And I am Ron Bennington. Breaking news right now from our Bennington Show newsroom. Al Franken is stepping down. Al Franken is stepping down as the Democrats continue to eat their own. One of the smart things that they do at a time that they should be pulling together, it's a power struggle within, probably setting up at least one more Trump victory. If not, it'll just keep going on and on the way Putin runs.
King Trump.
Yeah.
King Trump.
King Trump, no problem. But well, at least we got Al Franken, the guy who's been busting his ass to do all these progressive things the last few years. We managed to get him out. One of the stronger Democratic senators stepping down. All right, so coming up a little later on today, Jimmy Schubert is supposed to stop by here. Who else we got coming in today?
We have Amy Miller stopping
Amy
by.
Miller is going to be here, and
Hurry Kondabolu.
Now, Hurry has that documentary out, and it's on True TV, and it's on demand. And this is about, this one caught me flat-footed because I had no idea that Apu was so hated by the South Asian community. And then yesterday, Jen, who is 1/3 South Asian, but your dad is much more than you, right?
Yeah.
Your dad is...
His mom is like fully Indian.
Yeah.
So
then you told me something I couldn't believe, that your dad would get called Apu.
yeah, it was very annoying.
By neighborhood kids?
Well, my girls on my soccer team, because he was like one of the assistant coaches, so they would never take him seriously, and they would just make fun of me, make fun of my own dad to me, which is very awkward.
That is awkward.
Yeah.
That's
bold choice.
Yeah. But this is the way kids are. Kids don't, think about shit. And so this is, I'm going to admit, complicated, almost conflicted thing for me because I'm always comedy first, right?
Yes.
But I will say this, and I'm probably different from most people, but I see The Simpsons the same way I see Sesame Street. It's just something for children, right? So if you're teaching children shit that's hurtful or whatever, you should at least step back and take a look at it. Having said that, I talked to a friend of mine who I'd say is one of the biggest comedians in the country. And he's absolutely hilarious. And no, it's not Nick DiPaolo, because I did his show last night. But I was talking to a friend, and he was so disgusted that these guys did an anti-Apu thing because they're comedians.
Right.
And there's a lot of people, read off the list, Chris, of the comedians that are on this.
Russell Peters.
Well, let's just even stop right there. Who would ever expect Russell Peters to say, hey, that fucking bit? You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah.
So there's something obviously there that me being, quite frankly, lily white, hadn't picked up on. And you even said, Chris, you had never once thought of that as a...
Not once ever until this came out. I was like, hey, Apu's funny.
Yeah.
Like, Apu's just part of The Simpsons. I never thought that anyone would have gotten shit for Apu, the cartoon character.
I didn't even know, normally a stereotype is a stereotype and it gets used very heavily in comedy.
Yeah, I think I was always aware that it was a stereotype.
Right.
But I think that I was ignorant to the fact that how particularly hurtful it is when you have no other representation in the media. And I think that that's the part that was really kind of enlightening about the documentary, is that when you don't have other comics, and now there luckily is getting to be more and more South Asian comics, but at that time there were no other characters to go, yeah, this is kind of an obnoxious portrayal of an Indian, but here's other good ones.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we'd always say that we have an Irish background, although the purity of that I doubt. And there would always be an Irish joke, but you would have, plenty of others. But I will say this. in the history of comedy, Southerners have gotten kicked in the balls. I mean, you could not even just like recently, but if you go all the way back to Ma and Pa Kettle, after that, the Beverly Hillbillies, Andy Griffith's show. I mean, Southerners were always stupid, naive, hayseeds who, Vito, just do it, man. Who didn't know what the fuck they were talking about and were just completely confused about the slightest technology. And I even mean mechanical technology.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, everybody, I guess, takes it on the chin somewhere. We brought up before about any fat kid in a movie is just farty fat kid.
Right.
And a lot of that is, it's just lazy writing.
It
if
is.
you really think about it.
And that's kind of the biggest point that they're making is these people are not these are comedians, so they're not overly sensitive people. But what they're saying is, it's mostly lazy. Like, it's a lazy stereotype. And that's kind of the thing that they're illuminating.
Read off some of the other comedians in this.
Aziz Ansari.
Yeah.
W. Kamau Bell. Asif Manvi. Hassan Minaj. Cal Penn. Aparna Nancharla.
By the way, let's go. These are all great comedians. Cal Penn was the most, I think. He was
Cal Penn,
really pissed.
Yeah, is even more so than Hurry. I feel like his because Hurry kind of says, look, I think The Simpsons was a great show. I really liked The Simpsons when I was a kid, and I liked when the seasons were really strong. And Cal's like, no, I don't like it. I don't have to like it because of this thing.
I have a different connection to that to most people. I just thought it was a cartoon aimed at children that some adults watched, which you could say the same thing about Bugs Bunny or Fred Flintstone. This whole what a great satire The Simpsons was, it just wasn't, it just didn't strike me that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just never felt like, okay, I think Lisa Simpson can be very funny. But, you know, this whole thing that somehow, I think it's the great thing about it is the same way as the Tonight Show or the Today Show. It's been on, you know, for 1,000,000 years, and that's great. You know, it's a tradition. I get it. But
having been around longer, I think it's easier to look at it it's easier to criticize kind of, okay, maybe it didn't have the impact, because I think if it would have only been a couple seasons that were so
You're 100%
strong,
correct.
We would all go, man, what a great show.
You're right.
It paved the way. But now it's kind of like it went on for a very long time.
Well, it went on for like, I think it's 29 years and still rocking. And yes, you are right. Maybe if it would have ran for 7 years,
yeah,
I would have said, oh, what a show that it was. I know there's got to be at least 15 years that I've been less than a steady viewer.
For sure.
If I ever was incredibly steady. I do see it as an institution, and when I see somebody get a voiceover, we talked about that with Tom, like, I think it's great.
Oh, yeah,
you know what
absolutely.
I mean? And Dana Gould was in not too long ago, and, you know, I was happy to hear all the writing room stories and all that.
Yeah, anyone who has that as a writer's room experience is pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's great. I'm not running the show down at all. I'm just saying I don't know if I ever saw it more than a cartoon comedy. You know what I mean? At the same time, I think Mel Blanc is great, but no one sits around and talks about him every day. You know what I mean? Hey, Mike, what's up?
Hey, guys. Yeah. I always kind of thought that Apu was originally intended to highlight and satirize the middle America closed-mindedness.
I don't know whether it was ever thought of anything other. I mean, I think most of the time, and Dana Gould does a pretty great job of pointing this out, although some people would watch this and see him as the heel. You just have to make jokes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to write a lot of jokes. I mean, just think of how many jokes there is in any one Simpsons episode. So I don't think they sit around going, let's change the way people feel about, I don't know, somebody in a wheelchair, whatever, you know. Well, we were joking yesterday that every time a comedy tries to do a very special, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. It's usually Well, I would say almost 100% of the time, I think is what we came up with. It's awkward and it's kind of a miss.
But I will tell you, it's a great documentary from the viewpoint of, I don't know who's right about this. You know what I mean? Like this, You're thinking about something you never thought before. You did it, Chris, when you said it never once dawned on you.
Never.
When I turned it on, it was just really just to see these comedians on TV. You know what I mean? So I wasn't ready to struggle one way or another with it. And I certainly see, well, I'm going to say this. I certainly see both sides for the first time.
Right.
And a lot of this comes down to the voiceover artist. Probably when you think of voiceover artists, he's got to be one of the most successful of all time.
Yeah.
Easily, yeah. I
know that he's got homes on both coasts and all that kind of shit. But and he seems like he thought about it about as much as I did. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like he gave it a lot of thought. Nick in Richmond. Nick.
Hey, guys. So, Apu, how is he supposed to sound? How is an Indian supposed to sound? You know, I mean, is that what they're pissed about, that they picked an Indian? Or
No.
is he going over the top?
Well, they didn't pick an Indian. It's a white actor who plays...
Hank Azaria
he's white.
Yeah, is a white guy, but he's saying the character of Apu.
Right. Well, that's kind of something that that is discussed in the documentary, is that it wasn't necessarily supposed to be an Indian cashier, and that stereotype kind of came about maybe afterwards. And it is interesting to find out that it's kind of like no one is really taking claim of who decided that they would be.
Yeah, that's kind of fascinating. Also, that the term "thank you, come again" was never used before that show, and not really even used a lot of times on that show.
Yes, they pointed out that it was 8 times.
That's it?
It's only been said 8 times that he says, "Thank you, come again." That's only said 8 times in the series.
It has to be the first couple of seasons, too, right?
I would
I don't
imagine.
know.
I mean, but you would just assume, like, oh, he says that all the time.
In every single scene.
Now, can we say with any certainty that's where that came from?
I'm not sure that that's exactly where the phrase was.
They claim it was, though.
Yeah.
Here is Matt in Syracuse.
Hey guys, the stereotypes thing, I understand it, but to some extent, like the groundskeeper Willie, an angry, drunk Scottish guy with red hair, it's portraying another stereotype, and I don't see anybody really upset about that.
Well, go ahead, you can answer.
Yeah. Again, that's another thing that is discussed is there's tons of stereotypes in The Simpsons. However, the reason that this is specifically poignant to these comedians who are talking about it is that there is not any other types of portrayal of Indian people in the media at that time.
So you have Scottish people can sit around and be proud of a lot of Scottish people. And even like I talked about the South, there's all kinds of great people that a kid could say, oh my God, they're from this place, and look how, they're a writer, whether it's Tennessee Williams and you're from the South. All the great writers, in my opinion, have been Southern.
And my best friend is Scottish, and I've never been around him when somebody just started to do a groundskeeper Willie impression.
Right.
So, maybe that's part of it, is that, there are other types of Scottish people that were portrayed before.
Yeah, because people aren't just going to call someone's dad groundskeeper Willie. It's very weird that you said that thing about your dad wanting to coach soccer with you too, because one of the kids brings up that his dad really didn't know about baseball, but he just wanted to coach baseball to be around his kid. Now that he's an adult, he thinks that that's sweet. But at the time, he was like, oh, God. Oh, jeez. Now, the Italians being mobbed out guys on that show, Vito said something to me yesterday that surprised me. You said when you were a kid, You didn't like The Sopranos.
Yeah, the idea of The Sopranos really bothered me because it was just an easy go-to joke, and it was like the biggest thing on television at the time. So just the mafia and like the gabagool, like the amount of times people yelled gabagool.
Not only that, but it's Jersey Italian. I mean, it's just, it's your people.
Right.
But I remember back when The Sopranos had I had somebody from the anti-Italian American.
Yeah.
And, they never let The Sopranos be in the Columbus Day Parade, which is already, offensive. But it's fascinating to me, and we'll talk to Hurry about this in the interview, but it's fascinating to me to be caught flat-footed about something. Like, I'm at the age now where it's really not my world anymore, and I was doing the show with Nick last night, and even though we disagree somewhat politically, all our references come from the same place. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to look at my tribe, it really is white guys of a certain fucking age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm saying Franklin, who went from comedy to being a senator, and just saying that his whole past, you know what I mean? All this shit that was somewhat life as we know it is, that's over. There's a whole new thing coming on. So that's never easy to let go of. At the same time, it looks stupid to be the guy holding on to the past, even though we handed you the rock and roll torch. You should have carried it. You probably wouldn't be as fucking anxious as you are now. And drugs are not to even you out. So the fact that every time you guys are fucking surprised by the way a drug treats you, these side effects that you talk about, we call them effects. All right? No one ever said, there's a bad side effect to this drug. It's like, I took the drug and this is what happened.
It's a wanted effect.
We didn't fucking believe anything that the doctors told us. It was just the effects. Paul in Colorado.
Hey guys, isn't Homer Simpson a stereotype? I mean, it's comedy. I'm not offended.
Well, you weren't. You're obviously not going to be offended. If you're a white person, you're not going to be offended. It doesn't offend me either. Apu doesn't offend me because I'm not Indian.
There has been a stereotype of the clueless dad, the dumb, fat dad who just wants to eat a sandwich and the whole family doesn't like him. And Homer plays into that. But again, white guys just look at that and think that's stupid, lazy
and that's
writing.
some white guys. That's some white guys. Some white guys are like that.
Well, some white guys are like Apu.
Right.
I mean, there's no doubt that everybody is like some fucking archetype. You know what I mean? If you think about it, have you met white? The Apu in my neighborhood was a white guy, and we drove him crazy, and he yelled at us.
The candy store guy, right?
Right. But I didn't think, I guess that's all I'll ever be is a candy store guy, because I had other white guys to look at. That's the point of some of this. And seriously, I totally fucking get anybody who's just like, you're blowing this out of proportion. At the same time, I can't sit around and look at this list of very funny people who tell me that this thing fucking hurt, at least when they were kids.
Right.
It's worth looking at. It's not all the problems of society do not get solved in 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
All change takes time. No change is good for everybody. And even for anyone, every time you change something for the better, something worse happens. When I was a kid, all we talked about was pollution. All we talked about. We moved the industry out. The air is so much better, and now people are complaining about jobs. Everybody had a job when I was a kid. Most of the men died at 45, 48, and they died as very old men. You know what I mean? No way, no change. There's always a receipt 100% of the time. And who knows, maybe the next generation of South Asians will look back at Apu and think it's adorable. You know what I mean? I think Hurry's parents not being offended by it was kind of interesting to me. It's not that they weren't offended by it, but they chose not to.
Right, that they thought of it as that type of stereotype or even that type of racism is part of life.
Yes, it's part of what they had to put up with as immigrants.
And so, yes, as immigrants to this country, they thought, okay, this is how they feel about it. But then their next thing was to say, but you're different because generationally we're different. So they're aware why it was hurtful to him.
Well, it's a very a funny gentleman who put this together. He did our show a few years ago, and he's terrific. And he did an unbelievable job of bringing in all these other people. It's also a hunt for Hank Azaria. So from a documentary standpoint, it's terrific. And the fact that people are even talking and calling is also, that's always fascinating to me.
It's Hurry Kondabolu's The Problem with Apu. It's available now on demand and streaming on TrueTV.com, on Twitter at Harry Kondabolu.
Hurry Kondabolu is in studio with us. The Problem with Apu is available now on demand and to stream TrueTV.com. And he is also performing December 10th at the Joy Theater in New Orleans. HurryKondabolu.com for tickets.
Yes.
Good to see you, my friend, and congratulations on this documentary.
Thanks.
First of all, it's tough to grab the kind of heat that you were able to grab with this. But beyond that, I went into this not knowing what to expect or how I felt about it, and I left feeling incredibly complicated. So
that's good. Those are good
I
things.
think it's an interesting place. But I was amazed at the amount of talent that you were able to pull together.
I mean, it's funny. I think the community, like the South Asian community, Indian, Pakistani, whatever, like we're not all that big. So like we're generally, especially when you get to like this kind of industry, we're only like a degree of separation apart. The biggest surprise was getting the former Surgeon General of the United States.
Yes.
That was a bit of that's not in the comedy world. So that was a bit more of a jump, but it was pretty cool.
But he's very comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Like you made some incredibly great points. Well, this obviously a person of my age came into this with plenty of ignorance and never put together. But seeing that many people who didn't grow up together and had very similar thoughts and feelings was shocking.
I mean, to me, the big part of the story, and I think this is the part more than the character of the show, like if you take that out of it, is everyone just wants the ability to tell their story. That's a universal feeling across the board. Everybody just wants to exist. I grew up in Queens, New York, so like to me, I didn't really know I was a minority, really.
Yeah.
Because if you're not really when you're in New York, it's different. It only hit me until when I started watching TV and film. At some point as a kid, I'm like, wait a second, nobody looks like me or any of my friends, and that's when it hits you like something's weird here.
Yeah.
So I mean, and which is always when that moment where you realize like race is a thing. That's like what the hell is this? But yeah, I mean, like to a lot of people, I think it was weird to just have the one thing that represented everybody, regardless of gender, regardless of where in the world your parents are from, regardless of whether you had an accent or not. It was all encompassing.
Well, I think out of when it first struck me that it was a thing watching is when Aziz said that somebody yelled this an Apu thing at his dad. And I remember anytime when you're a kid and you see your dad being disrespected or your dad in an argument, it's mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember my dad chasing a couple of kids down the block once. It's just funny. I haven't thought about that in probably 20 years. And I just remember him saying some kids were saying stuff to my mom and my dad flipped. I'd never seen my dad that angry and just chasing these kids down the block. And like, I think he ended up talking to their parents. And I'm like, he was just pissed at that. They thought it was okay.
Well, you had your parents on the show, and that was also another amazing scene because they came at it from a different place than you did.
Yeah.
They were like, hey, we're not even here. And I imagine if I moved to another country, like if I moved to Africa and they're their name for us was shrimp toes or something, I don't think it would bother me. You know what I mean? I'd be like, whatever.
Right.
But when you grow up,
Yeah.
I think it's even much worse.
And also, to hear your mother say that you're approaching it in a different generation because you're from here and you have every right and claim. So she's kind of thinking of herself even different than you because generationally you grew up here.
And she thinks of herself now really differently. It's funny to talk to her about, like, when her and my dad came to this country, they didn't know if they were staying for a long time. They didn't know what the future was. Now, my parents have lived in America longer than they've lived in India. Like, this is home. There's no question. So that sense of entitlement that I had at birth, I don't think they had until more recently. Now it's like, we've spent more than half our lives here. We've paid into this system. We've worked our butts off. We've educated our kids here. We've invested in this idea of America. Like, why are we getting less?
Yes. It is. And that immigrant story is as old as this country, and it's always interesting how quickly the kids become American, kind of mainstream American from a cultural point of view. And you could see it in Italian families, Irish families. It happens over and over and over again. But your thing about The Simpsons was that this existed and nobody else was kind of picking up on it.
And that, it's the character, even if something else existed, it would be like a crappy character, but at least there was something else.
Right.
You always had something to contrast it to.
Yeah.
But let's say, you didn't grow up in New York and you don't know that many different types of people. Everything that shapes you is going to be the media, because that's just how it works when you don't know a thing. You know what I mean? Like, how much do I know about France? Like Jerry Lewis, baguettes. A lot of this has to do with my own ignorance, but it's like whatever I'm shown, if I don't study it, that's all I know. Mm-hmm. And I think about that in like more serious examples, like whenever, a cop kills a black man, I'm thinking, well, I don't think that cop is evil. Something's in his head. What got into his head? What did he see over and over again? And was he implanted with as a kid where he's like, I'm scared? It's a reflex. You're not thinking most of the time. It's a reflex. So what created that reflex? And I think the same thing with race in general. Like, people treat each other the way they treat each other initially because they have certain preconceived notions, and you have to fight that to get to actually meet a human being as a human being.
Yeah.
And look, it's The Simpsons. I love The Simpsons. It's a cartoon. It was something that shaped me. It's not that I hate The Simpsons or hate comedy. I'm a comedian, for goodness sakes. But it's like, it talks about how everything is uphill when people already assume certain things about you, and you don't get a chance to prove it in a broader way.
Well, that was one of the things that I was conflicted about, because normally in comedy, you protect comedy. Do you know what I mean? You're just like, hey, that's a joke. Learn to deal with it. This is how we get. But when I was looking around, some of the comedians who were like, no, it was very surprising. It was incredibly surprising to me, which also made me think there's a lot more here than you could possibly be aware of.
Because I did fight comedy with comedy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that if you're going to be a comedian who's going to ever question anything in the establishment of comedy, you have to fight it with comedy. Like, if this was a serious documentary completely, it would have been a failure. Like, I'm a comedian. My job is to make people laugh. The only way to ever question comedy is with comedy.
Well, the only way, too, like you said, each generation has to show that the generation before them are somewhat square, somewhat that's how change takes place. And I thought it was interesting that you did this stuff with Whoopi, because that's the longer story, and the way that she held on to the blackface stuff, that was fascinating.
It really surprised me.
I mean, she's an incredible human being. I mean, getting her to be in this was already like so impressive and cool. I couldn't believe it. But I mean, to me, my film is my version of her blackface collection.
Right.
It's the thing that, you don't harp on it, you don't dwell on it, but you don't want people to forget. Like, there's a history. Things don't just come out of thin air. Progress comes from something, and this is what you have to remember so you don't regress. I mean, there's a part in the film where I tell, Whoopi, like, so these things are clearly made to hurt black people. And she's like, no, I don't think it's that complicated. I think people are just trying to sell stuff. They're trying to sell cookie jars. blackface sells cookie jars, they're going to make blackface cookie jars. It's as simple as that. And I think about The Simpsons, there's a scene with Dana Gould. And I love Dana. First, let me just say, and it's incredible that he agreed to be in the film.
He's also great in this for what he represents, because it's just flat out there.
He's blunt.
He really is.
Yeah.
Like, he really took on that role kind of in a bold way, I thought.
He didn't BS me, you know. I can curse on here. Right?
Yeah.
He didn't bullshit me. Like, it's easy to just, like, go around it. And he actually, like, people are like, how could you be okay with him saying that, like, you know, this is the accent that many white Americans find funny? I'm like, because it was.
Yes.
That's why we have a movie right now. Like, this is what it's about.
And he did take the advantage of, hey, funny is funny. You don't mess with funny. You know?
Right.
Like, it was way old school comedy.
And really took the thing of, like, hey, we stereotype a lot of people, you know.
But that's why he basically is saying, well, this is how we make cookie jars.
Yes.
We only got 4 moves.
Yeah.
We got to get this thing done, right? So what do we do in 4 moves? And I say it's really mechanical. It's really just like making a cookie jar. Like, you're not thinking. You got to sell the thing. And to me, it's like, well, comedy is more interesting than that. Yeah. And also, if it's as simple and mechanical, where you just have to whip out the same content week after week after week, how is me questioning that being anti-comedy? I think it's pro-creativity. Anything where you fall into a mold and it's simple is boring. And I think your point is right about every generation has to question the establishment, right? Yeah. Like, every time I hear comics say this political correctness and we can't do anything anymore, and I'm like, we can't do what they did back then. I'm like, why do you want to do what they did back then? Yeah. Every time people say that, I'm like, you do realize you sound like our parents and their parents and their parents. Like, this is just the way it is. And I don't want to fall into that. Carlin didn't fall into that. Pryor didn't fall into that. I don't want to fall into that. I want to know where kids are at, and that's where I want to meet them.
Well, the interesting thing is about both Carlin and Pryor is the same thing that you described about your stand-up. You kind of did what came before you, and you gave them what they wanted. Yeah. And then you had a break. So when you go back and watch early Pryor and early Carlin, it isn't the guys that you ended up falling in love with, you know? And you were honest enough to admit that about yourself, which is probably true of every single comedian.
Everybody's journey.
Yeah.
That's whenever I get annoyed when people are like, oh, they're inconsistent because in this special he said this, and then 10 years later he said that. And yeah, that's why he's good.
Right. There's growth.
He's a person. There's growth there. And I think that's like so important. Like, you know, Pryor tried to be Cosby in the beginning, and there was that famous incident in Las Vegas where he just flipped out. I mean, he was having a great set, and he's just like, I can't do this anymore. He walked off. He got banned. And Carlin was really square, as was Lenny Bruce. And then all of a sudden, it felt false. They wanted to talk about stuff that might not make people happy, that questioned what comedy fundamentally was to people. That's good. I think it's good.
And at that point, it becomes an art form. It's not craft anymore.
Right.
It's art because you're creating. No, here's the thing that the problem. If you're running The Simpsons, it has moved into craft because it's 30 years old. If these were people, the show would have been off in 1994, 95, 96, but they're still running that same format.
Yeah.
30 years into it.
And I think that's almost their problem because 30 years ago, it was cutting edge.
Yes.
Like these idea of discussing these archetypes, nobody had really done it that way. The fact that cartoons gave them a lot of freedom, right? So it was perfect. Now they're still talking about contemporary things on the show. The show still exists, but they're using an old framework. They're using something that no longer is cutting edge, that simplifies it. And the thing is, unlike if it's a TV show with real actors and stuff, like you have restrictions, they're a cartoon. They can do anything. So to me, they're wasting an opportunity. And the idea is, well, you're going to change the fabric of the show. No, you don't. Like, people have died on that show. They've had to get rid of characters. You know, Maude is gone. Like, Krabappel's gone. Like, things move around in that show. All you got to do is shift things slightly, right? Like, Dana Gould is the one actually who had an incredible point in a Reddit AMA that he did recently. They talked about the Apu thing, and he said, well, I think one thing you got to do is move Cletus into the Quickie Mart. Because, like, what's the big discussion in America right now? It's about the, like, rural, poor, white working class and issues with them, and how do we deal with them? If you move that dude into a bigger role, you have something interesting to play with. You, for me, if you move Apu into somebody who's owning businesses and has money, you have somebody who counters Burns. I mean, you have a few more variables. The show is still the show. You still have Homer working in a power plant. Everyone's essentially the same age. Like, you have all the fundamental characters, but you just shift it slightly, because right now, if you watch The Simpsons, it's the old plots repeated. There's nothing that different.
Well, you strike out to talk to Hank Azaria in this, but did you talk to anybody other than Dana? Did you talk to any of the people who...
No, nobody wanted to talk. And I wanted to talk to Matt so badly, because I think, I read about Matt. Matt's really interesting because he used to write notes in his scripts, like when he would get scripts to read from like the writers. And if there was something like was making fun of a handicap person or something he didn't like, he would write, "We're not going to do this on this show. We're not going to make fun of this. We're not going to do it that way." So he had an ethos. It wasn't like, we'll do anything. Like, he had his lines. And his lines definitely have probably shifted like all human beings, right? Because when he made Futurama, his next series, it looks different and it feels different. I want to know, like, where were your lines then? Where did they end up? And when you did Futurama, like, what choices did you make that were different? Because nobody is static. Human beings, creators, writers, comics, we all change. So I would like to know, like, did you have regrets? Do you wish it looked different? Part of it, I think, is that who would have assumed the show would have lasted 28 years? What show lasts 28 years?
Yeah, it doesn't. But, when you look back and you brought up Peter Sellers in the party, that was of a time and place. Who knows if he would have done it 20 years later?
Absolutely,
That's exactly where it was then. And he was doing that takeoff of Gunga Din, which I don't even know if the kids have even heard that story today, but that was a gigantic movie like 10 years before. So what would have Sellers have done? We could spend all time talking about, but we know what The Simpsons have done. That's the interesting part of it. And that's the thing that made me sit back a couple times watching this, is that I would have a thought and go, yeah, but where's that thought? Is my thought based years in the past?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the part of it that's the part of it that's incredibly difficult to change and grow, because you think that you've already thought of something. It's been handed it to you. Peter Sellers in the party, funniest thing I've ever seen when I was a kid. Fell out.
That's the interesting thing too, is like, you could sit here and go, oh, well, what if he would have just not made that an Indian character? What if he just made another bold choice and he was just like, would it still have the same value?
Sellers or in the
Sellers, yeah. And I think that it still would have, but then you're also talking about the fact that it's a slapstick comedy, so maybe that wouldn't have even existed now anyway. I mean, that's not that type of slapstick you do not see in that quantity of an entire movie that's all slapstick like that.
The weird thing with the Azaria thing is, like, in the movie, like, the writers say that even by then it was a cliche. They didn't want to do it because it was so straightforward. So it's not like they didn't know it was hacky. Yeah. And that's the weird thing, because The Simpsons is not hacky. That's why this character feels like kind of out of place for a show that has good jokes. So.
And there is a debate of who invented Apu in the first place, which I think is always interesting to history. You know what I mean? Like, how did something
get created?
Because it wasn't thought about of like, this is going to be a major thing.
Yeah. Also the fact there's a debate tells you something. Nobody wants to take ownership of it.
Right.
It's not something they're necessarily proud of. It's just there.
And yet, how does Azaria go into one more season of that without making a change? I mean, you have pushed this to him, and it's now has life outside of
which I did not expect.
Your documentary. First of all, just between me and you, for something like this to be on True TV and be able to have legs, really unusual. Really unusual for it to be a talking point, and it wasn't on Netflix or HBO.
Yeah.
That's a part of it.
It could have been on Netflix and HBO.
You pitched them and they...
Nobody, like, there was a few places that wanted it, but none of them like, oh, we don't really do this. Netflix said that, and I'm like,
that's not true.
Yes, you do. Why do you think I pitched this to you? I mean, True TV doesn't do this. They actually don't do this, and they did, which is gutsy. And they make lots of gutsy calls in terms of, like, take the risk. This was interesting on the internet. Let's put it on there. They got Billy on the street. I mean, they take those risks. So this, to me, was, I'm glad they're getting some rewards for it.
Yeah, it is. It's a phenomenal thing to see. Now, not to give anything away, but this wasn't something that Hank was crazy about sitting down and working this out. Do you think it would have been a good move for him if he would have? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, because there's something that Dana says. Like, I tell him I want, you know, how do we get Hank in the movie? And Dana says, like, you know, it's in your best interest to have him. It's his best interest not to be in it. And I think that's wrong. I think you get points for trying. You always get points for trying. And also, it's not like we don't have him in the movie. There's enough archival stuff. But when he gets to talk as a human one-to-one, we actually see him as a person. And, you know, I exchanged emails with Hank during the process. There's one phone call that me and him had that's not on camera because it happened privately. And he was extremely kind and very sweet. He said, like, he liked my work and that he'd been following it ever since I did that old piece on Totally Biased, which started this whole thing about Apu and representation. And that he felt like the movie was a great idea, but he didn't know whether he really felt comfortable taking part because of the edit. And to me, it's like, well, no, dude, like, it's going to exist either way, but you telling your story is the important part. And I think he was nervous about the edit, but then he proposed, why don't we do it on Marin? Why don't we do it on Fresh Air? Why don't we do it somewhere where there's a full interview so I can't screw with the edit? Whatever happens, there's proof. And I said yes. And he still said no. And I feel like it's a missed opportunity, not just for him and for me, but like, how many times do you have an example of people having a really thoughtful discussion without screaming? It's not even a big thing. It's a cartoon character and actually coming to some neat resolution, even if it's not something that makes everyone happy, but at least being like, this is my side. This is my side. Let's talk about it. I think that would have been cool for people to see. Like, you can have a civil discussion.
I would agree down to the fact, too, is that all of us are ignorant about things that we don't know about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all of us had to be told, you know, at different things, hey, the thing that you're doing hurts people.
Yes.
And then it's up to you after that whether you decide, hey, hurting them's a little... You know, Joan Rivers always made points of why it was good to do this kind of thing. But I do feel like she owned it all the time.
And
that's big.
and having to look it in the face and really experience it. Because it's very easy to be like, I don't think it's offensive because it doesn't offend me.
Yeah.
And of course it doesn't because it's not about you. So when you're faced with talking to someone and saying, hey, this is why we think this is kind of shitty.
Yeah.
And then being able to have a dialogue about it. I mean, I thought it was really interesting that Dana even said, that, like, what do you want to take this beloved character out of a beloved? I mean, you're like, but when you start to say it like that, compared to, you know, upsetting people, hurting people.
Do you know who else are beloved characters? Are my parents. I love them. I mean, it's so weird. I mean, there was stuff in the film that we cut out. I mean, honestly, everyone says, like, you made Hank look so bad. I'm like, there was other stuff. We could have made people look worse, but that wasn't the goal of this thing. Yeah. The goal wasn't to, like, hurt people. It's to have this conversation. Like, ultimately, you know, and I've said this, like, whatever happens to this character is not that important to me at the end of the day. You know, like, we're way past that. Like, the anger that I show in the film, it's somewhat, like, projected from the past. I have to sell the thing. I can't just be like, you know, whatever happens, I got to sell the movie. It's old anger that I have to use to tell people this is the way it was. But currently, like, my goal is for all of us to make better art. And the main takeaways, I hope, are that representation is good and so is diversity because you get more stories. If people are saying, well, you can't do what we used to do, why do you want to do what we used to do? There's all these people who've never gotten to speak before who have tons of stories, and all Hollywood's looking for is something that's new, and they can't find it because they don't look, so they make the same old thing over and over again. There's a million different people. Do you realize that we should have infinite stories based on the number of people, the number of different variables in their life, the number of places they grew up, the kinds of parents they had, their religions? Like, you should be able to tell stories forever. The idea that we run out, that's our fault.
Well, and I don't know. I have had experiences where I'm watching a foreign film and, you know, a few minutes into it, you get it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, that's my family.
Yeah.
If we lived over here, you know, and it is weirdly true about the human experience.
Yes.
Most of the stuff that divides us is just details.
Yep.
Particularly family dynamics. Your parents have expectations. Your mom is too strict. Everything is about food. I mean, how many cultures can you say? Like, it's all there.
That moment in the film early on when my parents make fun of me, that gets brought up like the most, actually. And I think about that, like, why do people like that the most? And that's kind of the point. because it's my parents making fun of me.
Yeah.
Like the fact that, like, oh, Mom, I'm trying to do a thing. Would you
Yeah,
please?
exactly. You're literally sitting there making a documentary.
I need you to be immigrants who are upset about this right now. Can you please stop making fun of me? I mean, that's an example of, like, that's what I want people to see. Like, there's so many different stories, but at the core of it, we have this commonality.
Now, and I don't know his name, the young actor who was on the show as Jay Apu's.
Yeah, Utker Shambutker. He's in the Mindy Project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, he came up with kind of a cool idea, and you loved it immediately.
Yeah.
And The Simpsons kind of turned it into we bust everybody's balls thing.
Which, and which I've never liked, the whole, like, we make fun of everybody. Yeah. And it's like, I grew up in New York. So again, I made fun of everybody, and other people made fun. But the reason why that worked in New York is because everybody's here.
Right.
Everybody, I get to snap back. Everybody, like, that's what New York is, a snapping culture. So that's one thing. But when someone can't talk back, it's no longer fair, right? It's not a fair fight. It's not, you make fun of everybody, but we can't make fun of you. That's the issue. And
they did it using an Italian stereotype that doesn't. We have a lot of other Italians to compare it to.
Exactly, yeah.
But what I thought was brilliant is that was Hank Azaria again doing that character.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Holy crap. So it's actually pretty direct. I didn't even think about that.
He comes walking in doing Italian. Hey, what's wrong with a stereotype?
I didn't even think about that. That's great.
It was one of my favorite parts of the entire thing. Is that it is... Now, the thing about Hank is, and I met him before, and I thought he was a great guy.
I think he is.
Yeah. And, but, he's also had so much success that all this has to feel outside of his world.
Yeah, because I don't think he ever wanted to rock the boat. He's an actor. He's super talented. The range of voices he does on that show is like... When I was on the phone with him, there was a part of me that was freaking out. Like, like, oh, am I talking to the voice of Mo? I can't ask him to do Mo, can I? This isn't appropriate. But it's like, I'm a fan. So that's what also makes it weird. I mean, there was a part of me that always was a little heartbroken about doing this thing. And part of it was like having to go through old stuff. But the other part of it is like, who wants to like put even the smallest dent into something they love?
Yeah.
You do it because you love it. You do it because you want to make it better. You do it because it's important. But I love the show. Like, that's why yesterday I wrote something about how I don't want them to kill Apu. I don't want them to get rid of Apu. Like, I'm critical of the character, and certainly I'm like, could they not do the voice? And the way I see it, it's like, it's been 28 years. You can't change what's there, but you can improve it. And that's what America is. You can't start from scratch. You do what the best you can with what you have. And that's where I feel like we can do it with the show. And I hope they do, as opposed to taking the easy way out.
And like I said, I don't think this is over. I think the fact that you've opened this door keeps the door open now.
Yeah.
And it's going to be up to them what they do with it. I also think it would take you and Hank about 5 minutes before you would go, okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, he's funny. He's done so many incredible things. My only thing is I just don't want to be this guy forever. Who wants their career to be, I'm the Apu guy? That's like the worst possible thing after 15 years of going on the road to be that guy. To say stuff I said when I was 14. Like, I would really like to not be that guy.
Did you consider that before you started to do this?
Of course. There was a part of me that's like, this is, I knew this was not all of this. I didn't think I was talking to TMZ yesterday. Like, that wasn't ever a thought. But I figured this was going to be a discussion. Like, I feel like I'm a comic who has a pretty decent beat on what people are feeling and the kinds of things that come up. So when this film became an idea, like, I knew why it would resonate. I also knew that it would be hard. It would be a little bit of a hole for a little while for me to dig myself out of. But like in stand up, that's what I like doing. I like to dig the hole, make people uncomfortable, and find the humor out of that. That's the challenge. That's what all the greats did, right? So I guess I got to do that now, except with my career. I got to like be able to talk about things and that are interesting and get people into what I'm doing, regardless of how they felt about the doc.
It's also interesting. I was thinking of watching this because Russell Peters is in it.
Yeah.
And Russell has done such a brilliant thing of noticing everybody. Like, there are small islands that maybe you haven't even heard of, that he could do an impression from somebody from there.
He's a good impressionist.
Yeah. And those people in those islands really just appreciate it being into the mix.
Yeah.
And yet they've never given him, I mean, this is a worldwide comedian.
Yeah.
And they've never thought, hey, should we give him his own movie or should we give him his own series?
You're right.
You know, like if I feel like from a business point of view, I could make a lot of money if I just said, here.
Tours all over the world. There are whole comedy scenes that have opened up in Asia and Africa because Russell Peters has been there, and people are like, I want to do that. Like, he's opened up the door for stand-up. Like, he's one of the most important. It's hard to say because not everybody knows who he is in America, but like in terms of comedy history and global impact, like Russell Peters is up there, which is hard for people to understand. But, you know, doing accents, there's something human about that. It's relatable. And, you know, like I liked Apu initially when I was a kid because we didn't exist. And finally we exist. Russell is doing impressions of people that nobody would do impressions of too. Like, he lets them exist in his shows. Like, in the way that Apu is almost a sad step one, like Russell opens the door up for so many different people to exist and to do stand-up. Like, that's really admirable.
Well, it is interesting that there is this entire generation of comedians that didn't exist 20 years ago, but also from the American tradition of comedy. It was always immigrants. It was the Jewish, it was blacks, it was Irish. Those were the three groups that did it. Then came in the Italians. So that thing of being at that level is always the next people to, you know, bet on.
Yeah, that's... I've been trying to say it's just like there's nothing about this that's irregular if you look at the bigger picture.
Right.
This is what happens. And I also think for the talk of this is destroying comedy. Do you know what comedy is and how it works? This is the way it's always been.
Yeah.
There's some unrest. There's a push forward. Like that's what it is. The last thing you want to be is the guy that says that.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to be is the person that's on the side of things are better the way they used to be. Don't ever be that person.
Do you think you take some heat for this thing from like, oh, this is the latest PC thing? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I have to stop checking Twitter. It's been awful. It's just like, you know, and then there's some comics too, like, which I shouldn't. You know what's weird? I was just texting my friend about this, who's also a comic. Just like, I see other comics as my colleagues and peers. And so, you know, when they say stuff, it means more because, you know, we are in this craft. And then I have to remember that I'm being generous when I call someone my colleague or my peer. It also means that we're doing the same thing and that, like, we think about things the same way. The one thing we have in common is that we make ourselves vulnerable. And so I respect that because we make ourselves vulnerable. So if someone is to go after this and say I'm killing comedy without even seeing the piece, like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, your job is to criticize things, but you need to know what it is that you're criticizing. And the fact that I used comedy to fight comedy, which is what we do. The Simpsons is known for going after all popular culture. What's the ultimate Simpsons move other than making fun of the Simpsons? I'm right in line with the show. So, you know, when I hear it from random people, I know that it's not about me. I know that it's about a larger cultural thing. People like, I'm this month's This Is Ruining America. I'm this month's politically correct thought police person. And next month there'll be somebody else who's the example. None of these people have seen the doc.
Right.
It's just I'm the fill-in for the month. When comics do it, I get upset because you should know better. That's lazy.
Now, is this comics that you know or comedians that you don't?
Both.
Yeah.
And the ones that I know, I'm like, see, here's the thing. I'm taking heat for saying things to people's faces because that's what comics are supposed to do. When you say it behind someone's back, I got no respect for you. Like, there's three types of, I feel like, comic responses to the truth. Like, people who are like, this is who I am, I'm going to say it regardless. People who are like, I'm going to say this, I learned something different, I'm sorry, I'm going to write a better joke. And the people are like, hey, calm down, it's funny because it's a joke. I respect the first two. The third I have no respect for. If you own the thing, like Patrice said a bunch of stuff I didn't like, but I knew it was him.
Right.
I never questioned that it was fake. And like Louis has said stuff and then taken stuff back. Like, you can respect it. Like, I'm in a different place. I learned. The people who can't own it because all of a sudden it's just a joke. Fuck you.
Yeah.
That's not, how can I respect you? Don't bring up Lenny Bruce and Pryor and all these comics I love and then back off. They didn't back off.
No. And Lenny Bruce paid for it with
for
his
not
script.
backing off.
Yeah, he paid for it in comfort. No one ever said you were supposed to be able to say anything that you want and then have a giant pool around your house. You know?
You have to own it, and that brings success, that brings failure, that brings loss, that brings light, but that's what you do. That's why comedy's great. So to me, it's like, say it and own it. And if you can no longer own it, explain why you can't own it and write a different joke.
Yeah.
Jokes are infinite, man. You can do anything. It's the most open form in the world. A human and a microphone with no like production values, you can do anything with that.
I think it's also interesting to know that change is hard and it takes time. And all of a sudden it doesn't feel like, you know, it feels like, oh, that thing happened that wasn't that way before. But it's always been a struggle, and personal change is as hard as hell.
Yeah, you have the option of being either the person who's like, you know, a younger generation comes in, they do things different, and you can totally dig your heels in and be that guy, or you can listen, but that thing is going to come plowing through no matter what. So, you know, it's totally up to you the way you want to handle it.
You see it with like older comics, which are the ones who get it, and who like Gaffigan gets it. It's always interesting. Like I remember like Gaffigan had me do one of his TV pilots a few years ago, and he was referencing jokes I had made like 10 years previous that were only on YouTube. And I'm like, how do you know that? And he's a comedy fan. He wants to know what's happening now.
Yeah.
Like those are the comics that will live forever.
Yeah.
Like those are the ones who know exactly what's happening in the moment and care about comedy.
Gaffigan will also go into rooms in New York that those people don't know him.
Yes.
And do it. And that is stunning.
And Jeannie's always there taking notes.
Yeah. They will leave their nice apartment where they have everything going and just go into a place and go, let's see if this works here. So, yes, you are completely right about that not everybody digs in. And, you know, when you do dig in, that's when you end up breaking an ankle anyway. You know, gotta keep loose knees. Thank you so much and congratulations for this.
Thank you. It honestly means a lot. And I'm going to be touring with Liz Mealy, who I know has been on the show.
She's great.
I'll be in Austin on the 8th and Houston on the 9th and then New Orleans on the 10th. So I'll be traveling with Liz.
Congratulations to you, my friend.
Thank you.
It's a tough thing to do to pull off a doc like this that makes you think and talk about it, you know, days after seeing it.
Man, I appreciate it. And it's always like, you know, every conversation's always great. And I really appreciate you having me on again.
All right. We'll see you next time.
For sure.
All right. We are back. Jimmy Schubert has escaped the West Coast and he's here.
I was able to get out.
The documentary I Am Sam premiering today in Los Angeles, airing all weekend on Spike TV. And Jimmy's at the Borgata Comedy Club in Atlantic City this Sunday, December 10th through Saturday, December 16th. Shuby, great to see you, pal.
Hey, great to see you too, man. Yeah, I was watching the LA scene. Like it's like, you know, that's how I got to the airport, but it looks like a fire tunnel now. It's like something out of like worst case scenario. Like every year it happens out there. But what if this was to happen? Well, what if it did happen? It's happening.
It is happening. Nick DiPaolo, I was with him last night, and he said that's what his career looked like when he was flying out of L.A. Finally, looking down on his career burning up. Then he also said, my hat made me look like I should be cleaning up bird cages and taking care of Bupkis, Rocky's dog. He's calling me fucking Adrian for having a winter cap.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I said I'm going ice skating later.
It's hilarious.
And then he's taking me to the zoo. Have you done his show? He's doing a radio show here now.
No, I haven't. But like you said, I live in the West Coast. It's tough to get back here, but I've been trying to kind of get back here more now. You know, my family's here, my parents are getting older, but my girl's back here too. So I've been trying to think about maybe I've had enough of the West Coast. Maybe
that's it for you, huh?
Well, I may start to move back. I mean, it depends what's left of it after this fire.
No kidding.
But it doesn't look like.
How close do you live to this?
It's about 7 miles. Like I literally like that. There's a scene where it's like a tunnel of flames.
Oh yeah,
that's on the way to the airport. I mean, that's.
All right, Chris, you got that? I think it's up on the iBank.
It is, yeah.
And this looks like
Yeah.
Someone who's driving into hell.
That's terrifying.
That's exactly it. There you go.
This is like my Catholic nightmare from when I was a kid. This is what would happen if I didn't change my name.
It doesn't even look like it's on planet Earth. Like,
Beelzebub's working. Well, come on in. Come on, we got a seat for you. There's the Getty Center.
Why are you still driving towards it? Turn the fuck around.
Yeah, exactly. Look, these people let's see how close we can get. That's insane. It's like I'm sure there's a movie out there that they could use this footage.
I also got to tell you that Schubert, and I watched a lot of specials this year. Schubert did a special that's so goddamn funny. I don't know the last time I saw somebody come out swinging the mallet and then doing it for an hour.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's just, I guess it's the marketplace or whatever. We've been trying to take it around and get it sold, but it's just a tough, it's a tough marketplace now,
It's unbelievable to me because this special is phenomenal.
Yeah, other than I gotta. Hopefully, this movie coming out. I'll have a movie in theaters in January. This thing called Tales from the Crib, which is like this comedy horror thing. Hopefully, maybe that'll help, and I'll take it back out again. But it's just an interesting market now. It's like and I've heard, and I know this is kind of BS. But people say, well, if you're a minority, it would have sold. I go, well, that has nothing to do with it. It's a comedy special. Does the funny have anything to do with it at some point?
Unbelievably
Can you
funny.
take a chance? Can you take a minute to just watch it?
Yeah.
No, we got a quote of, it's great, but, and it's like banging your head against the wall.
Well, tell me about the documentary you're in this
Well,
weekend.
the documentary is I Am Sam Kinison, brought to you by the same people brought you I Am Heath Ledger, I Am Ali.
Right.
So, they're telling the Sam story, and always the problem with, the Sam story is that Bill Kinison wants to get involved and control, exactly what's done, of course, but it's, they said this was going to happen on this one, and I really don't do them. They called me and asked me, and I said, sure, I'll do it. They released the trailer last Friday on the Rolling Stone site, and so it premieres at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles today, actually, and so they're going to have a Q&A afterwards. But I think it's, they never really did a biopic on Sam. I don't know what the holdup is, but I think hopefully maybe this will create a resurgence in. I think it's certainly a story that needs to be told. If you did one about Andy Kaufman, certainly I think Sam Kinison at one point was, definitely changed the game. So I thought, it definitely merits a biopic,
and certainly not to run down Andy Kaufman, but he was a dull man that was stupid. Sam was like the funniest, crazy thing. You know what I mean? Like Sam was living the life that every young man thought they wanted to live. You know what I mean? That was exactly like he turned comedy into rock and roll.
Yeah, literally. He was actual certified guitar player and piano player and could sing. They had the old China Club that's here in New York. They actually moved out to Los Angeles at some point and opened up a China Club down there on Selma, like Hollywood. And you can walk in there. It's Herbie Hancock, Sting, Johnny Goodman, John Goodman from the Roseanne Show, and they go in there every night and jam and have these it's amazing. Yeah, he kind of crossed over, and then he had all those rock and roll stars in that Wild Thing.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Video, and he was smart enough to shoot it like the day after the VMA Awards, so they were all in town.
Yeah.
So all these rock and roll buses pull up on his back lot to shoot this video.
Right.
There was like 16 hours.
It was such a cartoon time with all those guys too. Like every rock star looked like a cartoon.
Yeah.
And then if you really look like at Sam and Dice, they were kind of cartoony too.
Yeah, they were human cartoons. They were very visually. They were like these kind of cartoon characters. Like they say, like what was that? It was like Dice was like Fonzie with Tourette syndrome. I think that's Dennis Miller said that. But it's like Sam was like they were like human cartoons. Like, really, with the beret and the long coat and it was like and for that time it seemed to kind of work for comedy, kind of like kick the door in. I think certainly. Everybody. Look at Dice is still doing like movies and Woody Allen stuff.
TV show's terrific.
Yeah,
man.
People love it. So it's I was working the doorman out there when those guys were coming up, and I was lucky enough to get to tour with Sam for like 5 years. So they're making a documentary. I feel like I lived that story.
Right.
Now they got other people just kind of telling that story, but I was always wondering about how good of a job they did or how close they got. But it's got some good people. It's people that were actually friends with them, like Ted Nugent's in it, and some other folks, and Bill Burr, and obviously Joe Rogan. All the comedy luminaries of the day are back there, kind of quoting on it. And I saw Jay Leno was in it, made a trailer. So, and Judy Tenuta. All those people from that era. So it should be interesting. I'm hoping that they did a good job with it, because that whole series, I Am,
Right.
Heath Ledger was great, and Naeem Ali was great. So
yeah,
we'll see. Hopefully,
I watched both of those too.
Yeah, I thought those folks did a great
job.
But
it's weird. I'll watch anything on Sam. Like I'll read anything. That thing has never kind of left my consciousness because I remember the first time I saw him on HBO. Maybe it was HBO. Was that the Young Comedian special?
Yeah, the Young Comedian special.
And it's just fucking like, what the?
Yeah,
it just was like a literal game changer.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, everybody says that. I know Joe Rogan feels that way too. Where he said, "Yeah, finally, there's a guy doing. I could do something like that." You know. And so, yeah, it was a game changer. And then he would like turn these things in like where he got thrown off Saturday Night Live.
Oh yeah.
And then the next week he'd be back, and there'd be 2 mounted cops escorting him out. To do a monologue. Like I'm
crazy.
back again with some. So he was like one of those guys who could turn those bad PR moments and turn himself into a bigger thing than like even missing the Joan Rivers show because he was passed out in the bathroom.
Joan went to his hotel room.
Yeah, and she couldn't get in the door and stuff. Trying to like he stood me up again, and she heard him on Stern all morning.
I think he was like literally laying on the floor in front of the door,
blocking the door,
passed out. And she's trying to open it.
Yeah,
Sam.
And that morning he was on Stern acting like a bulldozer fueled by vodka. So she knew he was like up all night partying. There was no way you get around it.
After he had already been on like months before bragging about getting sober. Yeah. Like he would do these. It's why they tell you in the program, don't go around telling people that the program got you sober, because when it doesn't work, people go, oh, shit.
Yeah,
see?
Back then, that was the shortest ride in history on a Sam Kinison wagon. Yeah, boys. Whoa, he fell off. I remember one time he got, and he was out. And I kind of started to disengage at this point because I was like, you know what, this is just going to end badly. He's going to wind up in OD'd. And so you kind of disengage and like, look, I'm not going to stand around and support you. I'm not going to be an enabler. And, and I was actually, going to the meetings, and he got a hold of some stuff and stayed up all night and was able to get to the meeting, but passed out in the doorway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are coming to the morning meeting at the log cabin, stepping over a passed out Sam Kinison as a reminder why you should, keep clean and sober. It was kind of embarrassing. I mean, I think that was like the low point. Like people are stepping over you to getting to a meeting. And it's like, that's what happens.
Right.
If, you're back to day one.
You're day one again,
yeah,
man.
you can't, it's that thing, people who, once it gets it hooks in you, if you're not vigilant about it, it's
well, for some people, it's, they say like one day at a time. A lot of times it's like 1 hour at a time.
Yeah.
5 minutes at a time.
Yeah, minute to minute.
Yeah, minute to minute. All right, there's 60 seconds.
White knuckling it, just take a breather, so it's, he certainly definitely had an interesting life. I mean, I remember like that whole scene of shooting that Wild Thing video and that whole day. It was like just everybody, there was anybody in rock and roll at the time was there, and they were all out there because Sam was smart because he was a comedian. Like none of these other guys would come out and support another musician.
Right.
But because he was a comedian, they all came out and supported him and was able to pull that off. And of course, it was one of the craziest videos of that.
It's insane.
Yeah.
The whole thing is insane.
Slash and, Rudy Sarzo from Whitesnake and all those guys.
Vito, I say for you and probably Chris Stanley, this was like, remember the first time you guys saw Bieber? Remember that excitement level when Justin Bieber came into your life?
It was amazing.
You haven't gotten over it yet, have you?
Oh, no.
Hey, Freddie in Washington, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey.
I want to say that I love the show. Let's do it every day.
It is good, isn't it?
It's pretty damn good. You're rocking it, man. I want to preface this by saying that I am a fat, sort of Jewish guy from Seattle, born and raised. And when I say sort of Jewish, I mean that my dad was half Jewish, and dad's being Jewish is the wrong side, so it barely counts. But I have always been the fat guy. I've always been really, like, funny and silly, and I've only recently started doing sets at open mics and stuff like that. And I found that in the culture where I grew up, where children are taught to be tolerant of everybody, we've now added the caveat that you're tolerant of everybody except those that are intolerant of anybody. And the culture is starting to be the death of irony, and irony has a tremendous part in my life where, like, if people are talking about heavy people, you know, I'll be like, fatties, God, I hate fat people, seriously, sweating everywhere, you know, stuff like that. I do a part.
So what's your point, Freddie? Where's all this going? Because I'd like to see you opening up for Schubert this week.
Yeah, come down to Borgata, do a couple minutes up front. Let's see that irony on parade.
He's some really good ways.
Come out there in a duck suit. We'll put you in a banana costume. We'll call you Jackie Bananas. You come out as the fat banana boy, and then we'll do you do some irony.
Jackie, does that sound perfect for you?
It sounds pretty good for me. I've been doing the banana bit for a while, though, so, you know, lateral thinking, I guess.
I think he's just nervous about what you can and can't say anymore in this culture we live in.
That's what I'm saying. Like trying to do sets and trying to, like, find my voice and stuff in stand-up. I'm a little late to the conversation because you guys were talking about The Simpsons, and
I'll fill Jimmy Schubert in on this. By the way, he's in the I Am Sam documentary this weekend and at the Borgata Comedy Club, and Gail can attest because she grew up watching Jimmy Schubert. He's one of the funniest human beings on the planet Earth.
Thank you, guys. That's awesome.
And we talk about you went up in that show you did with us in Montreal. You were amazing.
Oh, that was fun, man. That was a lot of fun. I know. It's the last time I saw you guys was up in Montreal.
It was so great.
I was kind of disappointed because, like, my gala was the one show up there wasn't until Sunday, but everybody had left.
Oh yeah,
yeah. So Joe McHale was up there doing a thing, and they put me up first. And I was like, I'm going up first, and I'm like, okay. So I went out. I do my 8 minutes, which I've been working on all week. Yeah. I get a standing ovation. I walk off. The next three people go down like Iraqi fighter pilots, and I was like, why did you put me up first? Why did you put me up? I'm not going to lay down. I'm not going to take a dive for the short end money for these ham and eggers. But she has 60,000 Twitter followers. Well, a lot of good that did her. All right, a lot of guys. Well, you know, he's very active on social media. Well, how'd that work out for him? You know, but I mean, I'm sorry. I don't mean to get crazy, but yeah, it was fun.
You see what he's saying, Freddie? This is why I need you with Schubert at all times.
For sure, I get it. And I just basically, the thing that I want to say is, being someone that grew up in a very liberal town, I know that we need to be incredibly serious about breaking down a lot of these tropes and a lot of these behaviors that are inappropriate in the workplace or at homes and all these things. But when we are looking for a laugh, when we go out, we need to understand that you don't have to take every single thing serious.
Well, have you noticed a change with the audience at all, Jimmy? Has it changed?
You know what? It's weird. Yeah, some things, like, you can word something one way and you just change an inflection or a tone, and it's not nearly as offensive. But yeah, you have to. Like, there's a joke I do about, the woman with a therapy pig on the airplane. They threw her off, but I mean, the fact that she made it all the way onto the airplane, and then later on I circle back around and go, well, the pig thing has merit. But they gave everybody a little pig. You know, it's this little pig sitting in first class, this little piggy sitting in premium plus, this little piggy sitting all the way back, and we want Muslims going to hijack that aircraft. Well, in New York and LA, they like to take you outside, you tar your feather, you run out of town. Everywhere else, it gets a round of applause. So yeah, there's certain things. Then I got to, when I'm in New York and LA, I got to say Muslim extremist, let everybody know, because they can't, connect the dots, because, but I just think it's part of being inclusive. And look, I mean, that's what we do. We make fun of people here in America. So you want to come here in America, that's what people do. You take yourself to, good luck writing jokes like that. Well, I can't write this because this will offend that group, and then this will offend, then you might as well get out of the business, because you can't write comedy like that. You make yourself laugh, and you deliver the jokes that you think are funny, and hopefully, you're not going to have some uptight nutcase in the audience that's going to take it too seriously. I mean, but you're right. You do have a lot of that now.
You find New York and L.A. are different from, let's say, when you're in the South or when you're in the Midwest?
Yeah, well, I just, there's out there people like, New York and L.A. like kind of like they're the outskirts, but, you get in the middle of America, people are dropping $25 to come see a comedy show. They want you to make them laugh. I mean, they don't really care necessarily whether it's politically correct as long as it's funny. Yeah. Yeah, but, you could get, if you primarily perform in New York and L.A., you get this little kind of thing where you got to be careful. But in middle America, they don't care. Texas, they don't care. They want you to be funny. So, Well,
of course they don't care. They voted for Trump.
Yeah, that 63 million people did vote for Trump, and it certainly seems like that demographic, or certainly that portion of society, is being underserved in entertainment and in other areas. So
is that your crowd now? You think, the Trump voter?
No, I go right down the middle. I think they're all full of it. I don't. I got bigger fish to fry. And I mean, there's people, there's people bringing therapy animals on airplanes. airplanes. They're trying to sell me, ball deodorant. I mean, they want me to check myself out of the supermarket. I got enough problems. I need to know the code for a mango. I'm not going to play this game. Sitting there, and yogurt's taking over the whole dairy section. It's like a wall of yogurt now. Yeah. You got butter and margarine in the corner. We used to run the dairy section. Now you got all these foreigners moving in with their bacteria.
You know what? You are right, though. What happened to the dairy section was milk and butter forever.
Yeah, but you go into eggs, juice, milk, cheese, cottage cheese. Remember cottage cheese? It was made of cottages. Now, suburbanite women used to eat it. What a woman that fine line between anorexia and divorce. Now it's there's no nutritional value. They got genetically modified organisms. And then you go to check out the would you like a bag? No! I'm going to juggle these 47 items out to my clown car, you twat! What do you think I'm going to do? Right? No, not a bag, and there's handles and stuff on it. That'll be too easy. I'm taking stuff out one at a time. Going back for the apple next. Like anybody else's afternoon, How many bags do you want? How did you get this fucking job? Do you take your IQ with a tire gauge? I've been doing this way for decades. I buy stuff. You put it in a bag, I walk out. Now it's like a dolphin got one stuck in his blowhole. Let me change my whole schedule because a dolphin got one stuck in his blowhole.
Now, you have to change that a little bit for LA. When you're at the Comedy Store, you got to chill it down a little bit.
No, I'd go full force. You go full force because I'm talking about checking out. I mean, who's going to get their feelings hurt?
Yeah. There's a lot of people that are pro-bag or anti-bag. I don't know what goes on.
Right, I didn't realize the plastic bag was the strife of humanity. Yeah. The bag people. We got to get rid of the bag people next. First the bags, then the bag people. It's like, I guess, where's the 10 cents going? 10 cents for the bag. What are we doing? Are we going to wait till we get enough to all put on scuba gear and go out and swim to the dolphins and teach them how not to get a bag stuck in his blowhole? Next month, are we getting Kevlar suits for the orangutans who live in Serengeti to keep them getting poached? Are we saving the world? 10 cents at a time? Is that what we're doing?
I want somebody to tell me where that dime's going. I never thought of that before.
Yeah, right.
So, you see, he's got bigger fish to fry. He's got a lot of big fish. Jimmy's got a lot on his mind right now.
Well, I'm just saying, in lieu of where as soon as you bring up politics, you divide your room right down the middle.
Well, not in New York. Everyone's anti-Trump here.
Yeah, good for them. The next 4 years should be fun for them.
Yeah, or a year and a half. Who knows where it's going to go? Al Franken's out the door today.
Yeah, Al Franken, clear. He's clear. That's just, you can't mess around, Ronnie.
Yeah.
It's like walking through a minefield.
It is.
You know what I mean? Did you see today?
Yeah.
Caitlyn Jenner just come out and said Bruce Jenner's been sexually harassing her for years. It's gotten ridiculous already. Come on, people. Get it together, people. Come on. What's going on? Jesus.
What a bombshell. Great for Caitlyn, bad for Bruce.
Yeah. I got to wait to see that headline. Caitlyn Jenner died today after a long battle with Caitlyn Jenner. It's like I think all she really did was make her eulogy awkward. Like, I knew Bruce for 66 years. He was a hell of a guy. I only knew Caitlyn for 8. She was a real asshole. And anyway, may they both rest in peace.
I actually think Caitlyn's an asshole, and so was Bruce.
I agree.
They were always. I say call them they now.
Yeah.
But both of them were just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I think so. I think he just did it because he could. He still plays golf. I noticed. He still goes out there and hits from the red tees. That doesn't stop him. That doesn't. Some guys will do anything to get an advantage.
Yeah, right.
Knock some push strokes off his golf game.
Well, that was the thing. Is like when you really think about Bruce Jenner, he had 4 or 5 good days in 1976, and then was just fucking loafing ever since.
That was
just dog paddling.
Yeah, he got the gold medal in the decathlon, which was great. Run, jump, throw a javelin, jump high. He did it all. He was on the Wheaties box, and then.
Who's ever if you even think about people who got the longest run from the shortest amount of time, you know what I mean? Like, there's certain people, they were in a couple of good movies, so they get the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying Chevy Chase, there's others. But what I'm saying is this. Sometimes if you get that initial push,
right.
The rest of your life is pretty easy.
Yeah, like you could ride for 10 years on that if you did something that was substantial,
Yeah.
I mean, Yeah, I have a friend of mine that, and she's a great director and a writer-director, Patty Jenkins, who did Wonder Woman.
Right.
It's the longest, biggest project helmed by a female director and the largest grossing DC comic movie. I mean, she'll go for the next 15 years, but she's talented, not because she did but that. But now, I mean, she also did Monster with Charlize Theron that she wrote and also directed. Yeah. So she's amazing, but she'll.
How'd you become friends with her, Jimmy? You're out there in L.A. It's amazing.
Well, actually, believe it or not, at the American Film Institute, when you were a young actor, when I first moved out there, you could fill out a thing and go to AFI and take classes.
Right.
And a lot of these young directors coming up had to do thesis projects. So I wound up working in like 2 or 3 of her projects and funny enough, that her thesis project was about a female superhero called Velocity Rules. And
really?
I played the husband of that. That's how long she's been preparing to direct a female superhero movie. And that was like 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, that's a giant breakthrough because they thought that the kids wouldn't accept the female superhero, but like none of it's real anyway, kids.
Yeah, I know.
What are you talking about?
It's all fake. It's all
That's so unrealistic.
Yeah, that she would be next to Superman, who's from another planet.
Yeah,
and fucking green rock hurts him.
I know. They run these shows called Heroes, with all these people have special powers.
Right.
Like that's not enough to be like Bob, this guy who works down at the Shell station. You got to have special power. You probably can see through windows.
See through windows.
You go in the doors. He started experiment when he was a child, but he realized everybody needs superpowers today.
Yeah.
It's not just enough to be a regular guy.
He's able to see through windows, open doors, digest food. Bob, coming soon. Chris, who was your all-time superhero when you were a kid?
I liked Wolverine.
Really?
Yeah, I was a big Wolverine fan.
But what happened with the things come out of his knuckles, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens when they go back in? He bleeds for a while?
No, he has a healing factor.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that.
I was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I was always like Spider-Man because he's a regular dude. He just got bit by a radioactive spider.
Yeah.
And everybody was always yelling at him like during the day. Get Parker, I need those pictures. He had to hide his costume in the phone booth underneath the telephone book. He had under S for Spider-Man. He opens it up. There's a little, he could change it to his costume.
I always thought Spider-Man made me feel a little claustrophobic with that thing completely over his face like that. I need a bigger air hole. You know what I mean? I got to be able to breathe a little bit.
I thought this move was a little lame, like shooting. Yeah.
Now they changed that too. That used to be like a thing that he invented. Now it comes straight out of his hands, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they switched that up in the last movies.
Yeah, because the props department didn't have anything, so they said, "We'll just shoot him out of his wrist."
Yeah,
they do all that in the post anyway.
My favorite was Jughead from Archie. I just thought he was exciting. Yeah, he was exciting. He was always able to get out there.
That crown was pretty cool.
Yeah, the crown was way cooler. I've never even seen that hat in real life. Jimmy's rocking a cool hat today.
You are,
yeah. Nice little.
As long as you don't run into Voss, you guys will be okay.
Oh, that's right.
Voss,
everybody wears these hats now.
Yeah.
It's a piece of baseball cap, but it's got a little bit of character to him.
Yeah, had a little character to him. But Voss always he actually looks like he should be in fucking Miami playing canasta now. Like he'll wear a very comfortable Cuban shirt, wears that little bowler hat, and he's just like he's really ready. He's ready just to hang out on the beach for the rest of the day.
Right, to go down to Miami Beach and play some bocce ball.
You lived down that way for a while, right?
Yes, sir. We were down at the down in Hollywood and Boca and back in the day.
That's crazy. That's where you and Flats became buddies.
Yeah, me and Flats became buddies. But I mean, that whole time period was. I mean, when you moved to Florida, there was so much work down there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost make a living, never leave the state of Florida at one point because there was. I mean, they had like gigs in, Kendall, Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Right. They had like 2 or 3 clubs in Fort Lauderdale. You had Boca Raton. You had West Palm Beach. You had Orlando had like 4 clubs. Tallahassee. I mean, it was just all.
South Florida kind of dried up for comedy.
Yeah,
right?
and that was just the east coast of Florida. And then on the west side, you had stuff in Naples and Bennington's and your club in St. Petersburg, and they had stuff, and I mean, there was just all over. You could literally, I mean, that's a big state to like even try to get out of. It takes you 6 hours just to get out of the state. So there was plenty of gigs up on the coast. It's so funny. It was just the coast. In the middle of Florida, there's nothing. Except like a village of like people who couldn't make the circus, like the flipper kids and stuff. It's a little scary when you drive across the Florida because there's nothing there till you get to the
Lobster Boy lived there for a while. pizza boy who just had those little lobster hands.
Yeah, little lobster hand.
I'm trying to think of, I think it's Gibsonton is the name of it, but it was carny people and circus people went there in the winter. So you would just go by.
Where is that?
I think it's somewhere a little bit in the middle of the state on
Like
the other side.
Bradenton or somewhere out
Yeah,
that way?
on the other side of the Tampa Bay from Bradenton.
Right.
And those people would just be there, like from the 1920s on. And there would be like a lot of side.
Gibtown? Is that it?
Gibsonton?
No,
Yeah, it's
here,
like-
look at that. Gibtown? Is that
Yeah,
it?
but they call it that as like
Oh.
as like a thing for Gibsonton is the name of it. But they would all live there, and a lot of the sideshow people would live there.
Like during the winter when
Yeah,
they didn't
during the
tour
winter,
with the
yeah.
show, they would all go there and just camp out.
Yeah, they would camp out, and then they'd keep places, and then kids from Florida would go around and try to fuck with them, and it was the biggest mistake you could make.
Oh, no.
You
That
never want
sounds
to
like
fuck around with a sideshow person.
No, that doesn't sound
they
like a
come
good
out-
idea.
they
Because
come out
then
your
you
heart.
become a sideshow. You'll become
Yeah.
a sideshow.
Gooba Gabba,
Yeah.
one of us.
One of us, Gooba Gabba. They're fucking Todd Browning. And you know what? When Todd Browning made that movie, like in the early, there aren't even people that look like that anymore. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
How we fixed that. But whatever that thing with the small, tiny head, like
Yeah.
those people are,
Well, there was only, I think, a resurgence because of Zika, because didn't that...
Zeke get brought it back in a
Yeah.
big way. It was great for circus industry.
What's the tiny head?
Yeah, the
tiny
pinhead is
Yeah,
the
you look like a hand puppet on your shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's
Go ahead and put up a picture because I
That's
remember
Schlitzie
Yeah.
was the one who was in...
oh, that's Zeke head.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I think I did radio with
And
her
then
for
there
a
was...
while.
And then...
He doesn't want to be a pinhead no more. He's got all the mileage out of it now. You just look at that. Go look at that profile.
And that was like a movie that was basically, they're just like, let's put these people in front of us and shoot pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That movie scared the shit out of me when I
Yeah,
was a
me
kid.
too. I don't know why I showed it to you. It's probably a bad dad. Now come look at it. It's probably really not all that good of a dad.
Oh, my God. Look at that. Wow. What a collection of... Oh, man.
The bearded woman was always a standard in that business.
And they say bearded woman. She just went through menopause. And,
Right.
She just forgot to pluck.
But they used it because my grandparents were carnies, and there would always even be a thing in some of the sideshows. There would just be like a black midget, right? And then he would dress up like he was some from African tribe, and he would come out and do shit, and all the fucking.
They would act like all my tribes people
Yeah,
were this
and
little. with them.
sometimes he would like go at the audience and shit. People would be weirded out, and they just laughed at the audience.
Right.
Like they thought it was fucking hilarious, and they thought the audience was just the
Right,
stupidest.
because they
people
were
in the
just
world.
rubes who like.
Yeah, they
didn't-
were just rubes buying into this.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, what was the guy going to do anyway? I mean, if he didn't get the freak show, like this guy could roll a cigarette. You know,
Right,
he didn't-
yeah.
That guy could roll a cigarette. I remember that dude, Snake Dude. I remember him. That sort of guy, you know. And so every time you were having a bad day, you just go through the Guinness Book of World Records and check some of these folks out and go, I ain't got it. Look at that guy.
Oh man, the one that I wanted to do was the fingernails when I was a kid. Did you ever see the guy whose fingernails?
really
With long fingernails.
Yeah. They were great, and then the two fat twins on mini bikes. That was fucking hilarious to me.
I remember the brothers.
Yeah.
The two fat that you could barely make out the bike between the legs.
They don't even make like these mini bikes anymore. And like you were right. Like we were in school going to
That's
the library, everybody would rush to try to get to this. Look at those two fucking dudes. They'd probably be
Jesus.
wrestlers today. Why are they on mini bikes out of everything in the world? I guess they didn't want to walk around.
Yeah, I
you know
think
what
I think you don't have to lift your leg to get
Yeah.
on the mini bike. You know, what I mean, you could just kind of walk right onto it.
They didn't have any rascals back then. You know what I mean? There was like little things that people would ride around the mall and shit. So they just went out and rocked that look, and everybody loved them. Everybody was crazy about them.
Wow, look at that dude! Holy smokes!
Why is he tucking his shirt in? That's what I don't understand. Like that's the first mistake you're making.
How long? I wonder what the history is on these dudes. How long they lived? I wonder what the combined cholesterol count is between these two.
The
fast identical twins in the Guinness
The fact
Book.
that they're identical, though, and I also think that they ate together.
No, but
So
how
they didn't
weird
wanna
would
get
it? How weird would it be? If it was the other way around. Like the one guy was obese and the other guy was skinny. Couldn't put on, soaking wet. He was 90 pounds.
Jimmy Schubert's here with us. I Am Sam documentary premiering today in Los Angeles, airing all weekend on Spike TV. He's also going to be at the Borgata Comedy Club in Atlantic City this Sunday through Saturday, December 16th. Theborgata.com for tickets and showtimes. And this afternoon, you're going to be doing Anthony's show.
Yeah, we're going to be there for like later on in the month. Yeah, they're going to be probably that'll air like later in the Christmas. Trying to catch up on their.
Oh, is that the game they're playing
That's
now?
the game they're playing. Get them all done while you got everybody in the room.
Yeah.
Let's do a couple down the road. Look ahead. But by then, I'll be promoting my New Year's Eve gig at the Pittsburgh Improv. So I won't be doing.
Yeah, right.
And the Spike thing, that's on Spike TV. The I Am Sam Kinison, it's premiering all month on Spike Channel. So if people get a chance, they could check that out on the Spike Television.
Well, we were just talking to Harry before you got here. He's got something on True TV, which all the South Asian comedians are pissed about the Apu character on The Simpsons, because when they were kids, and this happened to my producer over there, her dad would get called Apu by neighborhood kids. For being Indian, yeah.
For being Indian, so they just took that name and attached it to everybody.
Yeah, attached it to
everybody.
everybody.
And now they're finally upset about it because they've dawned on them.
Yeah, right.
Now they're hashtagging Me Too.
Yeah.
I was called Apu, hashtag Me Too.
Now, you grew up in an Irish family, and your dad was a detective, a Philly detective.
Yeah.
How often did kids think that you were a narc? How often did it come up?
No, they didn't think I was a narc, but they would always come to my old man with get out of trouble. Every time the neighborhood kids got into trouble, they would come sit with my dad and talk, hey, Mr. Shubes, I got this situation, how do I present it? My old man would tell him, go get a public defender, or you need to get a lawyer, or do whatever and help them get out of trouble. But yeah, in that neighborhood, it was, I was there every day, so hey, I need to talk to your dad about something.
Well, your dad did that work like pre CSI work,
back in the old days, Ryan, when you had the gumshoe, you had to track down a lead. You know what I mean? My old man's left hand, it's enormous. I don't know what he did. I thought he may have used it on a suspect's head or something. It envelopes everybody else's hand. And everybody's just, I thought that was his interrogation hand, is what I called it.
Yeah.
So it was just just the presence of that. It was like if the guy was just an incredible Hulk hand, just the hand. Everything else is normal, but the hand is enormous, and that was enough to keep you in line. I don't want to get hit with that hand.
But see, that's how the Philly cops used to be. They would bring you in, they'd give everybody a smack, and then somebody would finally break and say, I know who did it. And that's where the usual suspects things come from, because they know everybody talks that, there's no such thing as like a brilliant genius fucking criminal. They're all assholes.
You want to hear the true story? My old man told me two stories. As one was, they would get a hubcap and connect wires to it, and it would run the wires inside the copy machine. And they said, then you don't mind taking they caught a guy sitting in the car, a pile of cigarettes outside the driver's door. Two guys ran into the bank, robbed the bank, alarms went off. They ran out the back, left this guy, cops, nobody could leave. He's standing there, there's a pile of cigarettes. He was waiting for these guys to come out. They know what he is. Ran his license, a bunch of priors, so they bring him in. And they said, then you don't mind? He goes, I don't know, man. F you, I don't know anybody. He goes, when you want to take a lie detector test, they slap a hubcap on his head. And the guy stands behind him. They hit the copy machine. See? Is that your name? See, that's true. See, that's true.
Yeah.
He goes, all right, I'm going to ask you now, where do you live? And so, that's what I said. See? True. And then they would switch the paper out, and he goes, did you rob them? He goes, no, false. And the false paper would come out. It was a copy machine. I mean, you're not talking about the brightest guys as a lie detector. He goes, all right, so it says you're lying. So tell us what. All right, I'll come clean. But they would actually come clean. But stuff like, and if they did have to do an interrogation, and they get the tape out, the duct tape, and the phone books would come out and wrap it. Because if they didn't leave them.
So your dad was there when Frank Rizzo was running the police department, and then was the mayor.
Yeah.
Crazy days.
Crazy days. And as Frank said to my father, you're a cop. Enjoy the front row seat to the greatest show on earth. It was crazy. I mean, it was, it's Philadelphia, man. It ain't no joke. I mean, you're a cop out there. You had to, had all his, it's a pretty crazy town. I mean, there's cops get shot all the time down there,
Well, it was always a city, and I still think it is, where people punch each other. You know what I mean? Like, people still will say...
It's an emotional town.
Look, I'll be like, hey, you guys aren't getting along. Why don't you start punching each other until you become friends? Like, they used to think, even when we were kids, let them fight, they'll become friends.
Punch it out.
And weirdly, a lot of times that happened. Like all my best friends I grew up with, I had a fight with them when I met them.
Yeah, because you get it out of the way.
Yeah.
You get it out of the way. And you go on the golf course. You go down the golf course, you meet at 3:30, and you'd fight, sometimes till 4:15.
Yeah.
3:15, we're just exhausted. You guys are spitting at each other because they can't afraid to look away. They get punched, and then the next fight would come in. It was like, me and my brother had a doubleheader one time down the dead end. I had the 3:15 fight, and he had the 4:15 fight. And he was fighting a kid from the 8th grade, and so it was like, but the one thing is the problem with growing up with 6 brothers is if I lost the fight, I then had to come home and get my ass kicked again, and then I had to go back out and fight the kid again until I won.
They all felt like you have to go back out and fight, and you would say to your parents, I just fought. It ain't working for me. I'm outmatched here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to win every fight.
I had a kid who lived up the street, Michael Cox, and I would just come back from the shore. I was on vacation, but I'm, very fair skinned. So I had sun blisters. Like an idiot, I went in the sun and got the blisters and stuff. And so I'm in a great deal of pain, and he's knocking on my door. My Uncle Joe is babysitting. And he goes, I want to fight. I want Jimmy to come out and fight. He goes, I had all that stuff going. He goes, you got to fight the kid. He's out there. And my Uncle Joe's pushed me out. I got out. That kid popped my sun blister. I damn near tore his head off. I grabbed him. I chased him up the head, hit him on the back of the head with a shovel. I took him right up to his front door. He slammed the door. I kicked the thing toward the screen door. Come on, kill you. And then, I said, you feel better?
Yeah.
Aren't you glad? Thanks, Uncle Joe. I feel good. No,
thank you so much.
Let me get some skin cream on that blister that popped.
I like the idea. It's like, rules are rules.
Yes.
You need to get out there.
He asked you for a fight because they all used to be petrified. All the adults were petrified that you were a pussy, and they would stay on you constantly about don't take any shit from anyone, don't let anybody give you any name. You're like, okay, here we go. Just wanted to go out and fucking play wiffle ball, and here I am. Spend the next 45 minutes punching.
Yeah, it's funny. It was a different time period. I mean, and this is a true story. I know it's going to sound like a bit, but I am driving with my father, and we're driving up to this place in Jersey. We're going to my aunt and uncle's surprise 50th anniversary, and my dad says, pull over. And I go, okay, you know where we're going? So he pulls out a road map and a magnifying glass. I'm going, is there something wrong with you? Like he's out the window with a sextant trying to, I go, Magellan, okay, give me the smartphone. What's the address? 35 Bridgewater, New Jersey. Look. Forgetting route. All right. And it talked us through all the way on the radio. But we get used to doing something a certain way.
Yeah.
He had a fold-up map and a magnifying glass that he had on him. He's looking. I'm trying to find. I think 202's the way to go here. I go, Ponce de Leon. I got this. Let's Siri. Let's talk us in, okay? Pull over in traffic.
But that is the truth. Like, once you learn something, you don't think, oh, when can I learn something new after this? You just stick with it for the rest of your life.
Yeah, but you battle with it all the time because you're smart. Because you can just go, "Hey Siri, tell me this."
Right.
But sometimes you don't want to rely on that. Sometimes you just want to kind of do a Google search and read up on it yourself, and not get Siri's opinion about stuff.
Now the whole house is smart. Like you're going to be talking to your thermostat. You're going to be talking to the refrigerator. It's not just you talking to your phone. The whole fucking house.
Artificial intelligence. It's all collecting data.
I don't want any of it.
I know. I don't want any of it either.
Also, this people also have the smart fridge where they're like, oh, we see you're getting low on eggs, so it already adds it to the you don't even have to tell your fridge to add it.
I know.
The fridge is like, oh yeah,
and what it does is it sends that fucking note to your phone.
Yeah.
Which then sends a message to the grocery store. Which when you get there, you get a list of coupons, and guess what it is for? Eggs.
Yeah.
Because you're low on eggs. They know everything about you. You can't, you slip on a grape in the produce section. Oh, they put you on the window. Mr. Johnson, let me see. You bought tequila before at this store. Do you drink tequila on a regular basis? Were you on tequila when you slipped on a grape? No. But they collect data. It's all data mining operation.
Yeah. They said that literally people, you're going to walk in stores and they're going to be like this. Hi, Jimmy. Even though you've never been there before. Yeah. They're contacted that you're coming. It
happens now. You're on Facebook. You jump on Facebook. Amazon.com ad pops up for the new shoes you were just looking at over on Nordstrom's website. It
happens all the time to me too.
And it happens fast too. Yeah. Like you're looking something up, and then immediately I start to notice that my ads have all shifted, and then a couple days later you're searching something new, they shift again. It's so fast. It's really weird.
Yeah, but it's a little scary. It's like we're living in a digital panopticon.
I have one prayer at night. I said, Lord, please let me die before the future gets here. I don't want to be fucking part of it.
Resistance is futile.
Yeah, I don't want any part
assimilated.
I ain't fighting the Terminator. I don't want any fucking part of it.
You sound like John Connor now. The machines are coming, and when they do, I'm not going to be here. I know it's a little nuts. I mean, people like they plugged in. Someone said at Google. I was reading an article about they plugged in these two computers that were talking to each other, and then the computers came up with its own language, which freaked everybody out.
So nobody else could
They didn't know
talk.
what they were saying,
Right?
And so they unplugged both machines like immediately. Like can't make it out. What are they talking? What language? I don't know. They're communicating, and who knows what they're saying?
And they don't want the fucking programmers to listen to their new fucking language.
Right, so they came up with something new.
Motherfuckers.
Creepy, man.
Open a vein, Earth. Earth, listen to me. Open a vein. They're going to use you as batteries, like in the fucking Matrix.
It's like that old source that happens to serve man. It's a cookbook. It's a cookbook. Everybody. Now they want to serve us. They want to help us out. They want to be our friends. It's a cookbook. It's hilarious.
Vito, how old are you?
24.
You're going to live through all this shit unless what I think is going to happen, your heart collapses. That's the only thing that can save you. Keep having cheese with every meal, whatever you do.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
But you embrace every new technology, right?
Yeah, I'm an iPhone guy. I got like I got the Apple Watch, but I don't wear it because I don't want to bang into stuff and break it. I buy new technology and then I get afraid to bring it out with me.
Because you love it more.
I love it more than it's I appreciate the stuff so much that I'd rather keep it at home in good condition.
And getting the RDIF chips just injected into your skin, that's just going to be around the corner. That'll act like a mobile pay. And I'm sure parents at some point will start putting them in their kids just so they know where they're at all the time. And people do it with their pets already. It's just a matter of time.
Aren't you so glad you grew up in a time that your parents didn't know where you were at?
Yeah.
That was fucking fantastic.
When you could lie, like here's where I was.
I was at school.
Yeah, well, what we did, I rode my bike 17 miles to Churchville Reservoir. We fished all afternoon, and then it took us a little while to get back. That's why we didn't get back till 9 o'clock. And your mom's yelling at you in the station wagon coming down Academy Road. Where were you kids at? We're fishing. We weren't doing that. You know, I got the perch thing, and the perch started to get a little ripe. You know, couldn't keep them alive. You just pedaling as fast as you can to get back to your neighborhood.
Steve in Texas, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, guys? So I play a video game on the PlayStation, and I've never looked up anything for it on the computer or anything. The Facebook is now advertising that video game to me and things that go on like that. And you guys were talking about the RFID chips. There's a company in Seattle that offered that to their employees for paying for at the cafeteria, whatever. They have a chip implanted in their wrist to pay for that stuff.
Yeah, for wink, for paying at the cafeteria. Meanwhile, we'll be able to track you like some kind of wounded deer through the forest.
All right, let me just put the sign of the beast right here into your wrist, and then you're going to be able to pay that way.
So convenient.
Yeah, it is so nice.
Yeah, it's at some point, it's like, you become where they monitor all your off-work activity. And, I mean, you could get fired for a tweet now. God forbid you do something where you did something, well, we saw you were here off duty, so we're going to have to let you go.
Well, dude, you're going to do a show, though, a guy who got fired for a tweet, right? Anthony got pounced out of here over a tweet. Hey, Dave, what's up?
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking what you guys mentioned, RDI chips in the skin.
Yeah.
I mean, they might use it it might get really popular in California, because if you get kidnapped by like a Mexican gang or something, and then the FBI can find you, and they can find, and they can search you out, and you won't be kidnapped.
If I'm in California, I want to have a goddamn fire extinguisher fucking implanted. That's what I want.
Yeah, and because a lot of people are getting kidnapped by Mexican drug cartels out there, it seems to be epidemic proportions. I wouldn't worry about that so much.
Those people kidnap their own, not regular fucking street people. But yeah, if you're trying to buy kilos of fucking coke, you might end up getting kidnapped. Jimmy Schubert, great to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, Ronnie.
Good to see you.
And Gail, great to see you guys, man. Thanks for having me on.
Make sure you watch Jimmy on the I Am Sam documentary premiering today in Los Angeles, airing all weekend on Spike TV, and then he's performing at the Borgata Comedy Club in Atlantic City this Sunday, December 10th through Saturday, December 16th. Truly one of the funniest people on the planet Earth. Go to see him. And then Monday, in January, you got a movie coming out?
Yeah, January, called Tales from the Crib. It's like one of those horror comedy things where I play like a Rush Limbaugh guy, where they put a curse on me and I turn into a woman.
Yeah.
And so I have one of the vignettes of this movie, but Danny Trejo's in it, Vivica Fox, Chris Kattan. It's got a nice cast, David Allen Greer. So we'll see. It maybe Netflix, maybe a movie released in the theater. I don't know. We got to see what happens. But I just did the final ADR on it, so it should be coming out very soon.
Very cool.
Great to see you, my
You too,
friend.
man. Thank you, Ronnie. I love you, brother.
We'll see you next time.
All right, see you.
Bennington is back, and one of my most favorite people in the planet is here, Amy Miller.
Amy!
So nice. Amy's podcast, Who's Your God, is available on iTunes and Stitcher. Follow on Twitter at Who's Your Godcast. It's a really, really great podcast, so definitely check it out. And her monthly show, Two Doors Down, is happening Sunday, December 17th at Hollywood Improv in Los Angeles. Hollywood.improv.com for tickets, and follow her on Twitter at Amy Miller.
If you ever do your thing on the East Coast, let me know, because I would love to be on that podcast.
I want to be on it too.
Yeah. Separately or together. Separately.
Oh, see, the thing is, I don't even know if we know each other's kind of.
Yeah, because there's a lot to do with, you know, the way you're raised, your background, then also your personal beliefs. Like, I feel like your religious slash spiritual beliefs, you know, some of them are handed down to you. Some of them, the ones that get handed down to you, are the ones that you rebel against. It all depends.
And they're always shifting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And you had like some kind of witchy stuff, right?
Yes, I was raised Wiccan
Witchy woman.
by my mama.
Yeah.
So like a Catholic witch.
Yeah. It's interesting how many people in LA especially just keep very tight-lipped about it. And then we're like, no, come talk about it.
It's scary to most people because they feel rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also, like, some people are so hardcore atheist that they don't even think it's a fun conversation to have.
Well, those are the worst people.
Yeah. No one ever says there's a definitive answer to this, or maybe someday you'll find out the definitive. Or my own hope, just nothingness.
We call those hardcore atheists fedora guys.
Fedora guys.
For some reason, they always have a really dumb hat.
Yeah.
Those are the guys like the Bill Maher types who are like, everyone's dumb who believes in anything.
And they are pushing a belief system just as much as any.
It is a belief system, and a belief system that gives them comfort.
Right, exactly. And it's a belief system that, as much as they would like to believe that they are right, is based on their feelings and their thoughts and their ideas, not on facts, just like everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chris, do you have a spiritual belief of any kind?
I'd say I'm agnostic. If I was raised Catholic.
Ooh, so you're torn.
No, you weren't. You weren't raised Catholic. You don't know a single Catholic prayer.
Well, I hated it, so I didn't really pay attention, and I lied to the priest.
But all children hate it.
No, I didn't think, oh my God, I love being a little Catholic boy.
Just sitting there with the rosary beads. Oh, this is fun.
Just makes you a target if you say that out loud. I'm a good little Catholic boy.
How are you?
So let me get this straight. I mess up it all and I burn forever? God, I love it.
Fun.
Yeah. But no, there's nothing Catholic about you.
Well, no, not because I don't know the prayers. I don't know. I wasn't confirmed. I think
you weren't anything. You weren't even baptized.
Yeah, you probably
I'm willing to bet bucks you weren't.
He's going to go to limbo, I think.
The last
go to
baby in limbo. The last baby in limbo. Did you ever hear that Carlin bit? He was trying to figure out what limbo was like because they got rid of limbo, and then he goes, "I hope that they just moved them along to heaven. They just didn't cut them loose into space." And then he said he was just thought that limbo was all like, "Welcome to limbo," and like I was a little Catholic kid, and hearing that stuff, it just took such a weight off my shoulders. It was wonderful, to hear somebody who was raised Catholic fuck around with it a little bit.
But, you know, the concept, and maybe it was actually Carlin who brings this up. I'm not sure, but I feel like somebody had a bit about, like, then why would you do the trouble of baptizing your kid? Because it's like, limbo's like, it's okay. It's like nothingness. Yeah. But, like, then if you baptize them, now they're responsible, and then you risk them going to hell.
See, I remember when I heard that, like kids who die in childbirth go on to heaven. I'm like, that's the fucking gimmick.
Yeah.
That's what you want. Straight to heaven.
Right, you skip
any risk,
the pains of earth.
Yeah, the
any
pains,
risk of going to hell.
Yeah, and the extreme risk that you break anything in this, because I was baptized immediately, and I was baptized Joseph. That's my real name. My parents, after I lived, decided to change my name. Yes.
He's like Harry Potter.
I really am.
I was baptized later, like 8 or 9. But I it is really, it's very creepy being in this used robe, and then some creepy old man dips you into water. And I wasn't a great swimmer, so and I had stage fright, so the whole thing was my worst nightmare.
I can't believe that you had stage fright.
Until I started comedy, I had stage fright.
Wow.
Yeah. Well into being 30, but we get to combine swimming and being in front of people. This is great. And being touched by an old man.
Did someone burn me?
But I was so fundamentalist Baptist that we got baptized later, not like Catholics. It's not always when you're a baby, but because you have to be conscious enough to accept Jesus into your heart.
It makes a little sense.
But we're still accountable as children. So
that sucks.
So that whole, that "Do They Know It's Christmas" song?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a question we would always ask as kids. Like, what about children in Africa who've never heard of Jesus? Are they going to hell? And our pastors were like, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Sad, right?
It's so sad.
and then you start going, well, why would God make them born there?
Tell them about Christmas, please, somebody. And then I just started sending cards to Africa.
Jesus wants to help you. A cult seems to me to be like the coolest and most bizarre background to have. Like escaping from a cult, I think, would be great, because then the rest of your life is okay. You know? And I'm obsessed with this Scientology TV show where the
Leah Remini one.
I love that crazy show.
I can't believe she's doing it.
No,
it's pretty impressive,
dude. She'll be driving down the street and people are following her and stuff, and she'll have it like, "These are the assholes who think you can't change." She'll yell out the window. She doesn't give a fuck. She's great.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
I watched a couple episodes of it. I still get like a little bit panicky sometimes around stuff like that.
You would be scared if that was your world.
Oh yeah. I mean, the world that I had was a little cultish.
Yeah,
but it was also kind of fun.
Sure.
Baptists they have a good time.
Yeah, of course. It's your tribe.
We've learned a lot from this podcast too. We've interviewed, I didn't know there's a whole system even for a lot of Christian evangelical churches where if you try to leave, they will make you sign an NDA, especially if you work in the ministry, and offer you money. Like, we had a guy on who's a comedian / magician now, so he's in some other cults. But he left being a pastor, and they offered him like $25,000 to sign something saying, "I'll never talk about what happened behind closed doors," and he didn't take it.
I'll sign anything for $25,000.
That's what we said.
Yeah, that's fast money for me. That's my favorite kind of money that ain't going in the savings.
I know. So no, he just he wanted to tell the story of that church and how shady they were, and that it was worth it to him.
Yeah,
and now he's a professional magician.
Well, and then he won't give away those secrets.
Exactly.
But here's the thing: you're in a cult when they don't want you to leave, like when they'll come to get you after, or they say, "All right, your sister left the church; you can't talk to her anymore."
Right.
That's when
a
it becomes
sign.
cult.
Or even when they don't want you to ask questions, and that was the case with me as a kid. And it's like all the Jewish people we've interviewed have been like, "Oh, we love questions."
Yeah.
Like that's such a part of the Jewish faith. I can't speak. Jewish faith is asking and questioning and doubting all the time. Everything in your life, not just religion.
That's why they're not a big religion. The Jews are always small. But I've watched Hasidic Jews just yelling at each other in the street, and I would sit and listen to them for a while, and it's always about scripture and stuff like that. They'll be in the park sometimes.
Yeah, they kind of debate
it. It's really
it
fun.
It's a real culture of argument, and the new Christian church is not so much like that. You just go, okay, I believe it.
What is the new kind of hipster religion that your sister's been joining, Jen?
It's called Hillsong.
Have you heard of this one?
Is that where Christy Chelo goes?
Yes,
Okay,
exactly. Yeah.
And Justin Bieber or something.
Yeah.
I don't know about it.
I told
should
Chrissy
go on
that
Sunday.
she has to do your show because she was talking to me about.
Yeah, we did a
Hillsong.
show together last
you did?
night.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
She's funny. She
She's
sounds
great.
like a baby.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
does.
I know.
Christy Cielo.
Christy Cielo. I got an idea.
That's so crazy. That's so nice that you would have me on your show.
Yeah, that's too close.
So great. You're so funny, Amy. I love you. You're so funny.
I went to follow you on Twitter and I was already following you.
She did this thing where she was talking to me. She was just like, I'm so horny all the time. I just can't help it. And it's like a baby is telling me they're horny. I'm just a really horny person.
Yeah. You know it's bad if we are criticizing someone's voice.
Exactly.
But I think it's great just how joyful she is. Like,
I know,
you can't be in a bad mood and hang out with
It's
her.
true.
And most comedians are such downers,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And she's just very up and optimistic.
Yeah, she's great. So funny.
I should ask her about that church on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's in Brooklyn, right?
There is one in Brooklyn, but like I think that
There's
they're
a couple
kind of
in Manhattan or even in Jersey now.
Do a little
Yeah.
research.
Yeah.
Jen, your sister goes to one in Jersey.
She goes to the one in Jersey and then sometimes goes to the one in Brooklyn.
You guys still fighting?
Yeah.
I can't stand it.
Even
I can't
over
stand
Christmas,
it.
you're gonna keep fighting?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'll pray for you guys.
Remember
Pray for
your
you.
first year here? You both had your picture taken next to the tree, and you were so happy together.
Those were good times.
Yeah.
It'll come back
right, Jen. Make it right.
I have sisters. I've hated them half my life, but it comes and goes. It's hard.
Yeah.
It is, I guess.
Yeah. But over the holidays, I always talk to them over Christmas.
I never had that with my sisters.
Yeah, but maybe it's when you're the same gender because I think brothers can kind of feud and sisters kind of. I have a brother and we're just friends, so
Yes.
it's just good.
You're just buddies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sisters, your big thing is that she wore your clothes?
Yeah. Many times. Many times. Never returned it or
That's your
had a
sister,
stain
look.
on it.
My two sisters used to have like knockdown drag out fights over a sweater or a makeup, a mascara tube or something.
Yep.
And I would just hide in the closet. And I couldn't share anything with them because I'm the skinniest one in my family. They're both very large. But they would like pull out frying pans and hit each other in the face and pull out knives.
That's a cartoon fight.
I know.
One gave the other one a cigar and it blew up.
I know. Pull the old rotary phone up and hit each other with it. It's not something I can't mention a rotary phone on stage. People are like, what?
What
is that?
I think my parents still have one. I know that they still have a busy signal when I call.
Yes.
It's like, they must be on the phone with my sister.
But it's an important detail because if
Yeah.
I say my sisters hit each other with phones, then it doesn't seem that painful.
Tiny little
Stop
iPhones.
it.
Ow. Ow. Now, how far are you from the fires in L.A.?
Well, closer than I would like to be. We're
Yeah.
kind of on the east side, so they're not super close to our house, but very close to where my boyfriend works,
Wow.
which is where a lot of the comedy industry works.
Yeah.
And they're still going to the office. They're like less than a mile outside of the hazard zone because they put out this
Wow.
map saying like,
"Jeez, yeah,
don't drive in this area," and they're all still at work.
I was watching Kelly and who's the guy who's
Ryan Seacrest.
Thank
Yeah.
you. So Seacrest said his friend, their kid had to go to gymnastics. So they took the kid to gymnastics, came back, and the house was gone and the neighborhood was gone.
Oh my God.
They thought we're close enough that let's go to gymnastics practice. And that quickly the Santa Ana winds change. And you can't imagine this stuff.
Yeah.
Crazy what we put. I was born in California. I'm a lifelong kid, and it's not a place people should live.
No, it never was.
And if you own a home, there's so many kinds of insurance that you need.
Yeah.
Earthquake, fire, it's terrifying.
And then if it rains, it floods.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have a rain.
Mudslides. Yeah. There was no planning. They just said, let's put some houses on the side of this hill. It never rains.
But no one ever thought the desert leading up to the ocean, that should be a great place to put 7 to 8, 10 million people. You know what I mean? Like, it was always a crazy idea, but it just feels so good there, and it's pretty that people went. But they said part of the problem is now these fires came because they had rains last winter, which made things greener, which dried out more stuff, which caused these fires.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. I would have thought it would have been the opposite.
I couldn't believe it myself.
That's
I'm
very
just saying
strange.
this
It's very lush right now,
Yeah.
and that goes up instantly.
Yeah, this is the exact opposite of logic. You know what I mean?
I would have thought drought would have made
It's
it
a hellscape.
I remember the first time me and a buddy drove out there, and it was like years and years ago. I was like 17. And we used to say these, don't throw a cigarette out the window, don't throw it. Like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah.
How weird are they here? But they didn't want us to burn down, you know what I mean? Like, they were crazy about it. And we're like, we throw cigarettes out the window all the time. Our fucking neighborhood is fine. Where am I going to put this?
Well, those Portland fires from about 6 months ago, it was just a kid with firecrackers, like a 15-year-old kid, and he was like, someone approached him like, hey, you can't do that. And he was like, I don't give a shit. You know? And then now, like,
That kid's cool, though.
he's going to go to prison.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
And then we lost some of the most beautiful parts of Oregon. And then the Bay Area fires, it's just,
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
it's so scary.
But isn't this the weird thing? Is like the two things that we love, like fire and water, can be the scariest shit on the planet. And both of them, you're like, oh, I got water. Oh, I love this I got a little fireplace. And those same things can just bring straight panic disaster.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like some biblical shit.
Yeah.
It's just, I have a friend who, my best friend from college, lives in wine country where all those fires were.
Right.
And they just had to evacuate. They didn't know, they just assume, oh, our house is gone. And it was like a house their parents built. Like she had lived, they had it since she was a baby. And then Vice and HBO went in to do this special where they're following the firemen around, and she sees her house on HBO.
Wow.
It's like the deck is on fire, so they go in, they cut the deck off from the house, and it just tumbles. They put it out, and then the end of it is they go, well, we saved one. And she's like, holy Christ. And then people started sending it to her, and that's how they found out their house was okay.
I can't, that sounds like the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I know.
That's really
And
insane.
those guys are so brave. I hope all those firemen got their dicks sucked. A lot
I think of that for all first responders.
And I can help if they're...
Nobody ever says that they care about the first responders.
I like the second and third responders, the ones that bring lasagna and give it out to people. Those are my favorites.
Those are the Christians.
Yeah. Here, you got your lasagna, and it's also celebrity chefs now. Celebrity chefs will go to Puerto Rico, but they're still making the same kind of stuff that the Christians would make.
Right.
You know what I mean? Did you get an apple with that? I guess so. I don't know.
I have nothing left.
No, you get an apple, bag of chips, and a wax sandwich.
And it's just those guys, and women. I shouldn't say guys. Look at me, bad feminist.
Yeah.
You're
time to wait.
fucking sexist.
I'm asleep. Those first responders still have to go home to their lives at the end. That's what I mean. Some of those people were up for 36 hours fighting those fires in Sonoma County, and then probably just get home and someone's like, your feet smell or whatever. It's just crazy.
Shit, I have to do laundry tonight.
They said exhaustion is the number one problem that they're having because this has been going on so long now.
Yeah.
That these guys are burning out.
And it is so epic. And it's nature. And it's different from if you're a police officer and you can go oh, people are bad or whatever. It's it's an element. It's crazy. I would lose my mind.
Most of the New York cops that I meet will tell me minorities are terrible.
That's good.
They will say minorities are not like us. And I'm like,
nice.
Don't be that way. And they go, no, I do it every day. I go, you might be burned. You know what I mean? You might need to just get out. I work work at the Upper East Side and hate white people for a while.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That might be the best thing for you, is just to hate each group on your own.
Or take a little staycay even, you know?
You know what? That's it. Stay at home. Open up a bottle of wine. Sniff some glue. That's what I do.
yourself.
Yeah. That's what I do. I choke myself when I come. That's my thing.
You should say that to any racist. You know what you should try? And this could make you feel relief.
You deserve it.
Here's an apple and a chilled sandwich. Try to enjoy it. I was reading.
Do you have any condiments for the sandwich?
No. Nice and dry. Nice and dry, the way you guys love it. They were saying that the chilled sandwich business in England is $8 billion a year now. That they just like to go into a supermarket and pull an old cold sandwich out and eat it.
Like a little tea sandwich?
I'm going to say, it's not like I haven't done that before, but when I did, I was really unhappy. Like anytime I have to buy a pre-made sandwich,
it's terrible.
Means like I'm in an airport or it's like 2 a.m. and I am starving. It's always like the last choice that I'll make, and I'm never happy about it.
All right, you know how the bowl culture has caught on now, where you go and get a bowl of something?
Yeah.
They're now saying that we're going to have, and Thrillist had this today, $9 bowls of pasta that you could eat walking down the street with, that is gourmet and it's fantastic.
Really? Cold pasta?
Yeah. No, it'll be hot pasta, and you just go in and get it instead of a cheeseburger. And I'm like, where can I go? Where can I go
I need a
get
bowl
a
of
quick bowl of pasta?
It's funny when you go to England and you've always heard the stereotype about their terrible food, and then it is so bad.
Is it really?
Yeah, I just always heard like bad teeth, too much cologne, and terrible food, and then that's what happens.
Their snacks is for a snack at home. They'll have toast with baked beans on top.
Oh yeah,
beans and toast is a very popular.
Well, you have to remember a lot of their food came out of being in 2 world wars. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's
they had cans of beans.
There would
what can I do with this?
When you read any of those Christmas stuff, it's always and we had jelly jams, and they get excited just about something sweet at all. You know what I mean?
Or a pinch of salt.
Yeah, they're just fantastic to them.
He got me on the Great British Bake Off, which I'm now obsessed with. I watch at least
Tim Dillon started me on it.
I watch at least 1 to 2 episodes a night, just chill out. It's just the best chill out show. But there's so many herbs that they say so differently that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
Obviously they say herbs, and I know that.
Yeah.
But they say oregano instead of oregano. And you're like, come on, guys.
And they're closer to Italy.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense.
Where are you at right now? Are you still in first season?
I am still in the first season. I believe there are 5 of them left. So I still have a couple more episodes.
Now you're getting to the point where skilled people are leaving, and it's a little sadder.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
Kate just left. Was really sad
Felt
about
bad.
that one.
Yeah. I hate it when somebody can bake and they're forced to, hey, we got to get rid of somebody.
I don't like it.
I haven't seen it yet.
You're going to love it. It's on Netflix.
I know that I'm going to love it, and that's why I haven't started it yet.
Smart.
Because I don't want to, I'm not ready to go down that hole, but maybe for the holidays. I mean, I love Chopped and all those horrible competitive
These are
food
way
shows.
better because these people don't compete with each other.
No, they're really supportive, and it's just you get to look at pretty food, and then they're outside in a tent instead of just being in a stressful kitchen.
Yeah.
It's not like that stressful music that they play in American shows. It's it's just pretty
because you don't win anything good on this one.
You
know
just
what I mean?
become star baker.
Yeah, you come in, so you don't get your own business.
Have they have money?
And then they have competition where they're all right, today's challenge will be saucy puddings. Now you're gonna put your saucy puds in the oven, and I'm just what? That's an adorable culture that you have a phrase called saucy puds, and you guys all know what that means.
How about the 2 least sexual women that you've ever seen make all these little things? What's this shaped like? Something from my arse, and they do S&M. Yet nothing they give out they even ever have sex. They just do wordplay all the
It's
time.
those sweaty balls ladies from SNL.
Yeah.
My sweaty balls.
Chris, what are you watching now? Do you got a big show you're watching?
Well, I was watching this TV show, The Expanse, on Sci-Fi, and that's
I don't even know what it is.
Never heard of it.
It's
Sounds made up.
It's totally real, and it has 2 seasons so far, and it's 500 years in the future, and it's the relationship between Mars, Earth, and then there's a whole bunch of people living on an asteroid belt.
So So what's the
Where's the cool neighborhood?
You want to be a belter. I mean,
really?
Yeah, you want to be a belter.
I don't think I could stand that.
The Mars people are
Asteroid
So
belt,
rocky.
is it like things are just flying by your window all the time?
Yeah.
Well, the belt's important because that's where everyone's getting that's where like Mars and Earth are getting all of their
resources.
Minerals. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I want to live in a zinc neighborhood. That would be big for me.
It's great because the zinc is so close by.
But everybody, you just have your own rock?
Yeah, everyone has like their own rock. And
Seems so shaky.
it can be a little shaky, but I got really into the show.
I mean, I live in California, as we discussed.
Right.
So it's basically like living on an asteroid belt.
Jen, what are you watching right now? Give us something.
I'm watching this show on Netflix called She's Gotta Have It. It's directed by Spike Lee.
I love Spike, and I remember that movie.
Yeah, the movie is so great. I've actually heard some people say it's really good.
Yeah.
But I love the original movie so much.
Yeah.
I think the series, I love the series.
Yeah.
It's so funny. It's so great. It's like more about the gentrification going on in Brooklyn. It's like all of like these white people moving in, and it's like showing the,
It's offensive, Jen.
Well, remember when Spike put that in and do the right thing?
Yeah.
Like there was one guy in a Larry Bird shirt, and we're like, what are you talking about,
Yeah.
Spike? Nobody wants to move to Brooklyn.
I know.
And he was right, man, about everything.
100%.
Yeah. And I lived and worked in that exact neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that culture is not gone, but then the gentrification is there. So it's not fully pushed out, but it's like living together, and it creates a lot of tension.
Sure.
Where other neighborhoods, it's like one or the other. It really does create kind of.
Well, if you
a
own one
tension.
of those houses, why would you ever want to
Right.
leave?
Yeah.
You're
Well,
not going
those
to get anything
houses are
like it.
beautiful.
They're
Yeah.
so
Like
beautiful.
the best, like brownstones in Brooklyn are in that area. They're just phenomenally pretty.
But the best thing about that guy in the Celtics jersey is he's like so self-righteous,
Right.
which is how we all are. When
Yes.
like he's just like, hey man, I got every right to be here too, and it's like, no, but you could be a little bit apologetic, you know?
See, that's the thing, is this whole gentrification came up because we did not raise our children racist enough. So because of that,
You guys tried so hard though.
not as much as my parents did. They did a much stronger
Yeah.
job. Of course, you had TV in school, but that thing hurt minorities more than racists.
Like
have
maybe
hurt
the
minorities.
next generation will rebel, and they're going to be crazy racist.
That's what I'm working on with my nieces for sure.
Well, I think they're probably going to be racist about, people from the asteroid belt. You know what I mean? Oh, the asteroids
smell
are
like
coming
zinc.
around.
My nephew lives in the East Bay, and he just turned 9. And for his 9th birthday, he wanted Nikes and cologne. And my brother was really puzzled about this. As he's like an old punk, like he's never worn a spritz of cologne in his life. And I was like, he's like, those are for losers. And I'm like, Jason, he goes to school with brown kids.
Yeah.
And cologne is great. Why don't you just tell him it's because you're 9? And that's weird. But like, eventually he's going to wear cologne and get all the Nikes he wants. And it's just like, it's the Bay Area. What do you expect?
It's hip hop culture.
Yeah.
Why would he want to be
He's
part
trying
of
to get laid.
Yeah. Kids do like the culture that they are in, even if it's a bad culture.
Of course.
No one is more proud of their neighborhood than if it's a tough neighborhood. Schubert was in here earlier today. No one ever brags about, we never got in fights. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
Our neighborhood was so easygoing.
Yeah.
People actually think it was sometimes even tougher than it was because those are the stories you tell.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It does make you a better adult, I think. Those are like a lot of my favorite comics too. Just people like Joey Diaz and it's just like you would be this ridiculous and funny no matter what job you did right now.
Yes.
And he just tells stories from the old neighborhood, and it just kills me. He's saying full names,
Right. Well, I guarantee you, Joey Diaz grew up with people as funny as them, but they didn't realize it and go on to a career that way. Because he's funny like a street guy is funny. And it's almost genius to bring that part of you to the stage rather than saying, how's everybody doing tonight?
Yeah, and you see that split after you've done comedy for a while where people, you know, had like very lovely upbringings
Right.
with money, and you're like, oh, this is why your only friends now are comedians, because the people you grew up with and your family, they're not funny.
Yes.
I can't imagine that, you know, like my family, I mean, they're some of the funniest people I know because we were poor. And you got to make jokes.
So let's see. Is there any reason to have a sense of humor if you're wealthy? You know what I mean?
I can't imagine. I mean, I don't know why those people do stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Well, like, I feel like maybe, like, there was maybe British upper class kind of, like, snobbish humor. Like,
Yeah.
like that type. I'm not sure if that exists in American, like, rich culture.
Right.
But I think it might have in, like, British rich culture.
It's
might have had,
interesting.
like, an intellectuals. You know what I mean? Because maybe that's, you know, when you're thinking about like kind of like old money, old education, like those kind of institutions, maybe that lent itself to, oh, you're rich and educated, but that doesn't really.
And competitive.
Yes, and that doesn't really happen in the U.S. all the time. Rich doesn't always mean educated in the
Yeah,
U.S.
well, we feel no responsibility with our money
Right.
here. We honestly think, I'm so rich, I bought 55 jet skis. You know what I mean? Like, where they're like, I'm rich, I have a responsibility to this community
Yeah.
as my parents before me. You know what I mean? They don't have ugly rich the
and
way
they're
we
like, we've got to keep up the estate. It's our name. And
do.
you know.
Somebody told me that Trump is popular with poor people because he buys the shit that poor people would buy if they suddenly got rich. You know what I mean?
Like a
they would
gold-
have they'd have a gold bathroom,
Right.
you know, and just like I take a helicopter to my
Right.
jet, and then I go to my beach house. You know what I mean? That it's all just like it's straight. Well, I remember when he moved down to Florida, he wasn't accepted in Palm Beach to be part of that society because they were like real old money people. You know what I mean? And
Right.
he showed up, and it was like Caddyshack. You know what I mean? Plug away, Chris. You never plug anymore.
Amy Miller's in studio. Amy's podcast, Who's Your God, is available on
Who's Your God? Sounds like an Indiana God, the way you say it.
Who's your God?
Who's Your God is available on iTunes and Stitcher. At Who's Your God Cast on Twitter. And Amy's monthly show, Two Doors Down, is happening Sunday, December 17th at the Hollywood Improv in Los Angeles. Hollywood.improv.com for tickets, and on Twitter at Amy Miller.
By the way, I don't even know what Stitcher is.
It's just another way to listen to podcasts. It's mostly for people who have Androids and iPhones.
Oh, that's you, Chris.
Exactly.
You're
You
a
couldn't
Stitcher
play
user?
HQ.
I can't play HQ. No, I have to just sit next to people and watch them play and try to help.
Yeah. Jill sent me this thing that the guy, the host of HQ, and I think he writes for The Onion, he did an interview with Daily Beast, and he almost lost his gig over it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, because he didn't even say anything wrong, but they just want to keep a tight fist
Really?
on this game. Yeah, because it's a startup. Everything's a startup now.
I'm a startup.
You really are a startup.
Thank you.
Yeah. You grow, I wish I could invest in you right now.
You can.
What? How much to
Venmo, cash, whatever you got.
Well, if it was Shark Tank, how much to buy your future earnings? 10%. 10% of your future earnings. What would you charge me?
I will give you 15% for 200,000 and a line of credit.
By the way, I feel like
I'm not going to pay that back.
Yeah, I was going to say I could go to anyone on the street and buy 15%. Just like somebody could be working in a liquor store, and I feel like that would still be worth it to take 10%, unless they died. Would be the only thing. Jen, how much to buy 10%?
I would say. Oh, I have a little. I would say like 500,000.
She thinks she's going to make big money.
Yeah.
She boos.
I'm expensive.
I will need your expertise, though.
And what?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll make phone calls.
Well, you
for
got to
you.
be my partner.
Yeah.
Right. You've got to be like, who's the old lady on Shark Tank? And she'll be like, I'll be there. I'll pick up the phone.
It's
whenever.
good. You guys can take me to the festivals I never get into and be like, these are our conditions. We'll do the show there, but Amy's on it.
Dude, we'll tell everybody that you're great.
Thank you.
I always do.
Yeah.
Don't I always say this?
You always do.
You do.
Yeah.
It's true. And even on your podcast, which is very sweet.
I know. Any chance I get.
Yeah.
Because she's the best.
Chris won't even tell me when he's doing another show. He
Oh,
just goes
Chris.
off and hides and do it.
I don't try to hide it.
And then I was with Nick DiPaolo last night telling him what a great guy you are. Oh, by the way, I had a full fucking meltdown. So I ran. That's why I didn't see you at the stand. I had to run out to come do his podcast.
Oh, I see.
I couldn't find my fucking thing. I thought
no. Oh, my
I had
God.
lost it.
What is
so,
that picture?
This is from like 11 years ago when I first started
Can
here.
I see?
Yeah. That's when I started here. That's like my high school picture. So
a mob boss.
I always look like a mob boss in pictures. My passport would make you cry and run away in fear. My license too. They're just fucking scary looking pictures. So I thought I lost it completely. I'm trying to call Chris. He's doing another show. I don't know. He was off somewhere with Big J.
Oh my
Vito
gosh.
was drunk because I just wanted them to get me in the system to come in. I didn't have anybody that I could reach. The next thing I know, I get in the system. Chris gets back to me. I come up, and during the show, I had noticed that I had it up here on my coat like I was a special needs child. My mom did that when I had to go get
With a safety pin.
Yeah, she would take a safety pin and try to pin it on me somewhere, what she wanted to the store. That's how little. This is how different the world is. I had to go to the store for my mom and just take the note and hand it to them.
And
I
the
couldn't
grocer would
memorize.
just fill up your
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, we went to the liquor store without any money. My mom just had a tab, and we
Yeah.
would buy cigarettes and alcohol
Yeah.
as like 6-year-olds. I remembered much later that I almost got kidnapped on one of those trips, but I didn't realize it.
Why didn't you get kidnapped then? What happened?
Well, it's funny because I was precocious enough to know that like the guy was being weird, or
Yeah.
it was so classic, like a guy with a van in the back alley behind the liquor store who was
Wow.
like, "Hey, can you step in here and look at this map? I'm lost." And I was like, I don't think people ask 6-year-olds for directions.
Right.
Like I knew enough to know that, but not to fully make the connection that he was a kidnapper. And kidnapping was very hot in the 80s in the Bay Area. We had all the famous kidnapped girls, young white girls.
Now, what do you think was he going to get money for you or rape you and kill you?
I don't know, Ron.
I would just, I mean, you came so close
Did he look
to this.
rapey
and killy?
Yeah.
He looked pretty rapey and killy, yeah. But who knows? Like a lot of those girls just ended up disappearing or being, their body was found, and
Yeah.
they weren't necessarily raped. They just were taken for a while.
Somebody wanted to kill them.
Yeah. So I was like, I don't even know what street I live on. I don't think I'm good for directions. I'm going to go inside.
I would have been like this. A map?
Yeah, you kind of screwed up. I mean, there's the classics for a reason. I've got a puppy. I've
Yeah.
got some candy. Kid's like, map?
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do with the map?
Yeah, it also seemed kind of boring.
When my mom told me about the candy, I'm like, look, you don't want me to take candy from strangers. You better give me some fucking candy. Because I'm too impulse driven. I will go.
But we would go and buy cigarettes and stuff, and her tab was written on the back of like a Marlboro carton. You know,
Yeah.
the top that you rip off.
Yeah.
And that's where they kept a stack of tabs from the neighborhood. And I mean, it's unbelievable. She could trust me because I was a Christian kid, so I was never gonna try to smoke one or take
Yeah.
a sip till much later. Now I stay sipping.
Yeah, just a little sip. Just a little sip for myself. Get the long day I had. Little sips of peacefulness.
I think that's how bartenders should operate.
Yeah.
I make it, first I take a sip.
A lot of them
Then
do.
A lot of them, yeah, a lot of bartenders will drink with you. I know guys that are sober now who were drunk bartenders and now they're sober bartenders.
Mhm. Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
No, that seems very difficult.
But once you do get sober, drunk people looks like the worst shit in the world to you. Like when I go to a party, I'll make sure I go late to it. I don't want to be there 8, 9 o'clock at night and everybody's looking great and they're drinking. I get there 11:30, everybody looks like shit. You know?
And you're like, oh,
yeah,
okay,
everybody's just like, and I'm like, oh, okay, good to see you too, Grossy. You
You
know?
guys didn't go to Jay's birthday party last night, did you?
Well, it's a late night for me. Did you go, Chris?
I did not go, no.
Don't you live in Queens?
Yeah,
I mean, he lives right next to that place.
Really
Not
close
right
to
next
there.
to it, live in the
I live
same
very far from
neighborhood
there.
I thought you
over.
guys were friends.
What happened with you and Jay? Did you guys have an argument yesterday?
What happened?
No, I just didn't make it to the party.
It just seemed like you said you were going to the party and then you didn't.
I didn't make it. It was.
I would have been there, but I had to rescue Nick DiPaolo.
I went very briefly. It was fine.
Who was all there?
Jay looked great. He had a nice suit on.
Did he really? Good
I
for
saw
him.
Soder. I don't know. I saw a handful of people, but then there's also a handful of. I saw Attell come in with a case of beer, which was the most precious thing because it's a bar.
Yeah.
He didn't have to bring beer.
Yeah, that is true.
He's such a sweetie.
That's very cute. He's the best.
But then, there was an open mic still going on, so there's 75 little. I heard someone downstairs go, "Did you see Dan Soder upstairs?" And I was like,
God.
"Ugh, embarrassing."
Dan Soder said something to me after my open mic. He said, "Stay with it, son. The future is yours, and it's bright and beautiful.
You have got it."
Do you know that Gail, your aunt loves Dan Soder just from Billions? She doesn't know anything else about him.
Really?
And she's like, she was like, the night we did the Thanksgiving show, she goes, "How did you get the guy from Billions?"
I know him.
Yeah. The guy from Billions is a very, very fine friend of mine.
I feel like people's moms and aunts love Dan.
But I've also, and I brought this up to Jay, I've seen like girls wait for Dan Soder and have numbers, and Dan Soder goes like this. No, thank you. Because he is choosy.
Yeah, he should be.
He's not. Now, there are others that will just go for quantity.
Yes.
I.e., Mark Norman. Hey, thanks for the sex.
Oh, Mark Norman, who has so many jokes about how he doesn't like fat girls. Sure you don't, buddy.
he enjoys the quantity, but Soder is a quality first guy, a Warren Beatty, if you will.
He should be. He's so great. He's a catch.
I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No.
Why?
I thought Jay was the catch.
They're both catches in different ways.
kinds of catch.
Is Chris a catch?
Sure.
Oh,
I'll take that.
see, I heard.
Take it.
I think Chris is extremely charming. And that charm goes a very long way.
Say something charming, Chris.
Amy Miller's in the studio. Amy's podcast, Who's Your God, is available on iTunes and Stitcher. Follow it on Twitter at Who's Your Godcast. Amy's monthly show, Two Doors Down, is happening Sunday, December 17th at the Hollywood Improv in Los Angeles. Go to hollywood.improv.com for tickets and on Twitter at Amy Miller.
Is there there's been rumors that your show Two Doors Down, that Three Doors Down will appear one night.
Is that going to happen?
It's named after a Dolly Parton song, one of her greatest songs. It's very clever. And we play Dolly throughout the show.
Oh, nice.
My co-host is also obsessed with her. But the whole song is about how we're in the small room at the Improv.
Mm-hmm.
That's obvious. Someone's having a party 2 doors down, and she's like, "We're having our own secret party back here." This is just a clever,
Dolly.
clever
That is
little
clever.
thing.
Dolly.
Thank you so much.
Clever.
All right, that's it for us. Anything else we need to plug?
Gail Meets Girls airs this Saturday at 6 p.m. And
remember, we had other guests on the show today.
And also, also Hurricane Nabalo, his documentary, The Problem with Apu, that's available on demand and streaming on TrueTV.com. And Jimmy Schubert, I Am Sam, that's airing in LA tonight. And he's playing the Borgata, December 10th through the 16th. Go to Borgata.com for tickets.
All right, that's it for us. Always great to see you.
We love you, Amy.
Always welcome. And we'll see everybody again in 1974.
Ladies and gentlemen, the evening is over. We hope you all enjoyed yourselves, and we'll see you all again in 1974. Good evening!